Hey guys. This is part 3 of What If Naruto Was in Bloodborne. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start.
We are pain, that's all. We are God.
Chapter 7, Abrupt Drop in the Tide. Naruto found it very awkward to pretend to sleep for so long. He managed to make and dispel a bunshin without anyone noticing, but he could only hope his patrols got the message to spread out. The experiment proved successful when the impressions of a bunshin dispelled after an argument about who should dispel to let him know it worked from 3 different patrols hit the original blonde simultaneously. Naruto did not like pretending to sleep. It was boring and nothing happened. He could use the bell and set up a rest spot in Tazuna's house in case something happened, but then his teammates would wonder why he needed his bell to sleep and why he would gain a sudden insistence that his bedding be left in the same spot. Failing that, the immortal genin would just sneak off and set up a rest area somewhere else. He didn't really want his team to know about the bell after all. The idea that this plan would allow the blonde to travel to Nami no Kuni whenever he wanted through the dream occurred to the boy. He figured that might be useful in the future. Mentally patting himself on the back was a brief distraction from the boredom of laying there for hours with his eyes shut, trying to keep his breathing even in case Kakashi checked on him. Naruto didn't think he'd ever had a worse night of sleep. The next morning Naruto made more Kage bunshin, mostly to keep his cell thinking he had indeed slept, before breakfast, which Tsunami made and was eggs on rice with miso. The blonde gave thanks and dug into his share eagerly. He didn't feel hungry anymore, but his body still functioned, and filling his stomach helped him feel human. "It's good to see you do have an appetite," Tsunami commented idly. Naruto froze mid-bite. He hadn't even realized he hadn't eaten much last night. He forced his body to relax before he responded, "I was kind of tired last night. I'm usually fine after I sleep." He bluffed before he continued eating. The last bit was an ironic truth given the relation of the dream to his immortality and sleeping. Tsunami nodded as they continued eating. Once they were done, the shinobi followed Tazuna to his bridge. He had work to do, and Zabuza or other assassins hired by Gato could attack at any moment, so the Konoha shinobi needed to be ready. Kakashi glanced at his students. Naruto was on edge despite having Kage bunshin with sensor abilities watching their backs, but he chalked it up to the blonde not being comfortable trusting the bunshin yet. Sasuke had a similar air of false calm with an edge, while Sakura was just visibly nervous. The Jonin wished he hadn't let his genin convince him to put them in such a dangerous situation. The only silver lining of the situation was that Meizu was too injured to join in on getting revenge against Naruto for at least a week. Probably longer, actually. That weapon was vicious and the wound had been deep, but they might have an Irionin. Kakashi hoped the enemy did not have an Irionin. They would be whittled down over time if that was the case. The man wondered if he should have risked the Kage bunshin taking Naruto away from the fight to face Zabuza, but ultimately decided he made the right choice, as chakra exhaustion would have been a game over in that situation. Tazuna's workers all seemed to be in low spirits, dragging their feet and looking at the shinobi warily. The Jonin couldn't blame them. Naruto didn't seem to like the bridge, and Kakashi wondered if it was the number of blind spots. Kakashi didn't like bridges much either, but he hit it better. Sasuke and Sakura unfortunately seemed to pick up on the blonde being nervous, and it made them nervous too, which in turn made the civilians nervous. The Jonin made a mental note to lecture his students on using an impassive or brave face to keep up the morale of the people you're supposed to be protecting. Clients like their shinobi guards to be confident. Naruto seemed to come to a decision. "I need to use the bathroom," he said, and ran off. Sakura became annoyed as she assumed that was all that had the blonde so antsy. Sasuke narrowed his eyes, but he could not and would not follow the blonde even if he did think the other boy was lying. Naruto sent a Kage bunshin back to his team. He recalled the last time he tried to trick them, Sakura had figured it out by hitting him. So before he made the bunshin, he focused on the idea of remembering to use Kawarimi if the kunoichi tried to hit him. The issue was that the blonde was not particularly amazing at it, but as long as he didn't give Sakura a reason to hit his Kage bunshin, she should leave him alone. He vaguely recalled that the girl had not liked that he'd used henge to take her form. "Sakura-chan is weird," Naruto muttered to himself as he wandered into the woods of Nami no Kuni. His Bunshin had scouted them already, so he had a general idea of the layout, and he recognized landmarks he had not personally seen. The blonde realized belatedly that he couldn't actually use the bell or his Kage Bunshin would all dispel. He sighed to himself and tried to relax with nature. He liked his plants at home anyway, and he heard people call nature walks relaxing. At first the boy thought it failed. Every squirrel or bird moving caught his eye and prompted his instinct to hunt, to chase the moving animal. After the first few times he started to get comfortable though. He recognized the small animals not as beasts but as harmless. Soon enough Naruto felt a bit more relaxed. No larger animals had come to pick a fight with him, so he considered what to do until it was time to pretend to sleep so he could actually use the bell. His chakra control was still awful, so he grabbed a leaf and sat down. Naruto put his back to a tree, took off his hatay to rest it in his lap, and practiced making the leaf stick to his forehead with his chakra. The leaf fell a few times, but the blonde had nothing better to do, so he kept at it until something caught his attention. His hackles raised before he even consciously registered why. Something bigger than the small animals he had gotten used to was nearby, something that got past his Kage Bunshin. Naruto looked towards the sound sharply but was surprised to see a cute young girl, barely older than him, with large brown eyes, long dark hair, and fair skin. Slender, dressed in a sleeveless pink kimono with red trim and plum swirls that went down to her ankles, a simple white obi tied in a bow, and brown sandals. The girl seemed startled by his sudden movement. "Oh, I didn't mean to startle you, Shinobi-san." She apologized and the blonde relaxed. "I'm just looking for a plant around here, a succulent with medicinal properties," she explained. Naruto wasn't sure if he'd be much help. He didn't know the local plant life, but it was something to do. "Do you want help?" he offered. The girl seemed surprised. "Are you sure? Don't you have ninja things to do?" she asked. Naruto looked down at his hatay. "Well, yeah, but I've got most of them handled," he answered with a shrug. "I might have already seen it, just describe it to me," he assured. The girl considered him with a curious expression before she seemed to make a decision. "Well, it's a spike succulent, mostly green but red towards the tips," she explained, and the blonde had a blank expression. "I read that it grows on the roots of trees around this region," she added. That would explain why Naruto had not seen it. "Well, it has to be around here somewhere then," he mused as he stood up, tossed aside the leaf, and tied his hatay around his forehead. "Hang on, we'll find it in no time," he assured. 11 Kage Bunshin scattered out of the cloud of smoke formed by his chakra. Naruto was starting to get a bit lightheaded. "Those were all physical?" the girl asked curiously. "Yeah, I got a lot of chakra, so I can make physical Bunshin, and a lot more of them than most," Naruto bragged happily. It was something he could actually be proud of since it was related to his human heritage as a shinobi. "They can find things for you?" Naruto nodded. "Kage Bunshin are meant for scouting technically. They can patrol, and if they get dispelled I know about it," he explained. "Plus they could just bring it back here to us," he added with a grin. "Oh yeah, I'm Naruto Uzumaki. What's your name?" he asked curiously. "Oh, I'm sorry, it slipped my mind. I'm Haku." Naruto was grateful to the strange girl for the distraction. "Nice to meet you, Haku-chan," he said happily as he looked around the roots of the tree he'd been sitting against. "So what do these plants do anyway?" he asked. Haku seemed surprised. "Oh, they can do a few things. The sap is anti-inflammatory, edible, and soothing for burns," she explained vaguely. "You mentioned you needed it for a friend?" Naruto asked as they looked. "Oh yes, burned himself," Haku answered quickly. Memories of a flaming torch wielded by crazed humanoid beasts in dark dungeons flashed through Naruto's mind. "That sucks," he said in a level tone. They searched silently for a moment. "Naruto-san? Why did you become such a strong shinobi?" Haku asked. Naruto flushed at the praise and scratched his cheek nervously. I guess I wanted to be acknowledged," he recalled. Haku shook her head. "I mean, why train so hard to be so strong? Surely you worked hard to get to the level of using so many of those Kage Bunshin?" she clarified. Naruto frowned as his scratching hand moved to the back of his head. "Oh. Well, I guess Uzumaki just have more chakra naturally? Sorry, I guess this might be weird to a civilian, or a human, but ninja clans have weird abilities. He explained nervously, barely holding his tongue on calling someone else a human as if he wasn't. Haku looked strangely sympathetic and understanding. I see. And your clan had more chakra than most then? She mused. Naruto wondered idly how she knew the Uzumaki was a dead clan, but he recalled Kakashi mentioned it was in a library. Yeah, he agreed, so I guess, he trailed off, I dunno, I have these natural advantages, so it seems wrong not to make the most of them, you know. Haku frowned. You trained because you could? She asked. Naruto shook his head. No, that's not quite it. He denied, I really did start for acknowledgement, then found out about my advantages later. He added, not mentioning the additional advantages he had gained before even learning about the innate ones. Haku looked down. I see, it's all you can do, isn't it? She asked sadly, and the blonde stiffened. Do you at least have others you can fight for besides yourself, don't you? She continued in a worried tone, but the boy didn't have an answer. I think people can be as strong as they need to be when they're protecting someone precious to them. Naruto sighed. That sounds nice. He agreed. I did fight to protect my team recently, and that was probably the best I'd ever fought. He recalled his clash with Zabuza. I'm beginning to think desperate situations bring out the best in me, he grumbled. Haku seemed almost relieved, but still concerned. I'm sorry for prying, you just seemed. She trailed off. Naruto waited. I shouldn't pry. Naruto was about to ask what she meant when one of his bunshin returned with the plant described. Found it. The Kage bunshin said proudly, offering it out. Haku accepted the spiky green and red plant. Thank you, she said before turning to leave, but you should know I am a guy. Naruto's bunshin popped out of existence in surprise. No way, he muttered, a guy that much prettier than Sakura-chan? He asked in disbelief, but Haku was already through the tree line and soon line of sight was broken. The blonde took a minute to recover from the revelation that he had been developing a crush on an older guy instead of an older girl. Finally he coped by deciding it didn't matter anyway since he was an inhuman inhabitant of the dream anyway. Naruto did agree with what the older boy said about protecting precious people though, but he had left out his selfish reason for protecting others, his need to be heroic to prove to himself he wasn't a monster. Civilians didn't need to hear about problems like that though. Even other ninja didn't need to hear about problems like that. The blonde returned to practicing holding a leaf to his forehead with his hitate in his lap. Before sunset, Naruto got bored of playing with leaves and searched for a safe place to hide his body while he dreamed, somewhere to return from if he died. He'd gotten the impression from a Kage bunshin that Kakashi had actually figured him out, and told him as much before he dispelled the decoy. The blonde found a small cave. It was small, and thanks to a small stream running through it, the inside was wet. Naruto sent in a Kage bunshin. He was not getting bit by a spider again, or whatever else might live out here that he had avoided by not crawling into small dark places to sleep. There were bats. Naruto didn't even know bats lived around here. They were small, but they still startled him when they flew past his head while screeching. He supposed that would do. The Kage bunshin quickly confirmed nothing else lived there, and he occupied the stolen abode, gripped his weapon and rang his bell. Naruto's eyes fluttered open in the dream to the soothing voice of the doll. It is good to see you again, Ryoshi. However, someone has already found your body. Her words were unfortunately far from soothing. Naruto scrambled for the tombstone that indicated where his body currently slept and stepped through the light and back into his body in the waking world. He jolted awake, and his eyes darted around. He half expected to see Kakashi, but instead after a moment a stranger appeared at the entrance. A white mask with the Kiri symbol on it with a wavy red line in place of the mouth was on the stranger's face. Long dark hair tied back in a white bun holder with 2 locks framing the mask. A green haori with white trimmings tied with a brown obi was over a pinstriped outfit. You are a strange little shinobi, the stranger mused. The moment you rang that silver bell your eyes shut into deep sleep. Yet moments later you startle awake and begin looking for me. Naruto was tense. The last 2 shinobi with Kiri symbols tried to kill him, so he was a bit on edge. Who are you? He asked. I am an Oinin, the masked shinobi answered. Zabuza Momochi is my prey. They explained. Naruto's eyes widened, the word clicked. Hunter ninja, Oinin? he asked curiously. We hunt Nuke-Nin to protect village secrets. Zabuza's body is property of Kirigakyu no Sato, please cooperate. Naruto frowned as he cocked his head to the side, but the prospect of an unexpected ally intrigued him. Okay, he agreed. First of all, you fought him, correct? How did you detect him moving through the Kirigakyu no Jutsu? Naruto's frown deepened. How do you know I did that? He asked. Zabuza's use of Kirigakyu no Jutsu is well known. He is a master of silent killing. You would likely need to be able to in order to lure him into a straight fight. The masked Oinin presumed correctly enough. How do you know that I specifically did that? Naruto clarified. Wouldn't my sensei be the better one to ask? He questioned. You are the one who has maintained Kage Bunshin patrols for over 24 hours and is currently separated from your team. The masked shinobi answered plainly. You are an oddity, thus you were approached first. Naruto guessed that did make sense. Okay, well, chakra sensing. He answered. Please do not lie. If that was the case, you would have noticed me immediately. Naruto flinched. Look, it's a new ability. He excused. I gotta hone in on it, you know. He tried to bluff. How did your weapon withstand clashing with Kubikurabocho? Naruto frowned and looked at his weapon. He was starting to feel cornered, and not just because he was in a cave. He got out of the small space. I don't know why. The masked shinobi stood a good bit taller than Naruto, but the blonde realized the Oinin probably wasn't much older than he was. Kubikurabocho is a massive and heavy weapon. It is strange that a weapon with such a mechanism withstood clashing with it. Naruto lifted his weapon and looked at the mechanism again. My no Kojiraboko is just really well made. He insisted. He hadn't even upgraded it yet. He had been about to perform maintenance actually. Maybe he should get a more portable weapon maintenance kit for his tool pouch. I see, the Oinin said evenly. Why did you let Meiza go? Naruto blinked. Oh, you found him? I didn't want to kill him, and I guess Kakashi-sensei must have picked up on that because after asking some questions while he was drugged, which still didn't get much because they were just painkillers, we just kind of left him there to recover. He rambled, sorry, I guess we don't get a bounty because we didn't turn him in. We were kind of busy with this important mission. The masked shinobi held up a hand to halt the blonde from rambling further. It is fine, but you are correct about receiving no bounty. The Oinin said, why are you out here alone? Naruto raised an eyebrow at the question. Why? He asked right back. He didn't want to answer that question. You are lonely, yet you care about your team enough to push yourself to protect them. Why not rest where they can protect you? It is illogical. Naruto frowned. Well, I guess I'm illogical. Don't you want to know more about Zabuza or something? He asked. What was that bell? Why did it send you to sleep so quickly? Naruto's frown deepened as his stance shifted. Are you trying to hunt me or something with those questions? He asked. The line of questioning had pulled far away from Zabuza. The masked shinobi paused for a moment. Perhaps I wished to offer advice. Why do you assume otherwise? Naruto knew he was paranoid since his trip to the depths. But he felt justified. We're shinobi of different villages. Why do you care that I want to be alone? He asked. Do you want to be alone? The masked shinobi asked. The blonde had to silently admit the guy hit the nail on the head. The genin did not like being alone, but he needed to be alone to avoid revealing too much. Yes. Naruto lied firmly, and after a moment of silence the Oinin acquiesced. In a burst of speed the masked Kiri shinobi disappeared and the blonde boy was alone again. Despite not liking being alone, Naruto actually did want to be alone at that moment. But unfortunately he still had to endure a talking to from his sensei and endure another night of pretending to sleep. He was developing a headache. By the time Naruto returned to Tazuna's home to face Kakashi's inquisition alone, the blonde had what he thought was the perfect excuse. I saw a cute girl. I wanted to flirt, so I helped look for this plant thing that helps with burns. But it turns out she was a guy, so I got really embarrassed and didn't want to come back. The blonde peppered his lie with truth without looking up. Kakashi raised an eyebrow. Alright, well, I'm still impressed you managed to pull that off. But your above average stealth and combat competence aside, don't go running off alone. He asked. Naruto nodded. He wasn't sure why he didn't mention the Oinin. He supposed it didn't matter much, and the time to bring it up seemed to have passed. The blonde felt a bit more relaxed at least. If something went horribly wrong, he could return not far from Tazuna's home, and he had a way to get back to Nami no Kuni whenever he wanted. Pretending to sleep for 6 hours straight still sucked though. The next day was more of the same, but at the bridge Kakashi had something extra for the genin to do. It seems our enemy is holding back. It's possible they met up with Meizu and are now healing him up. If they're readier earlier than a week, they have an area ninja and we're in trouble. But until they attack, I can get you ready. The man explained. The blonde wondered if he should mention that Meizu was probably out of the picture. What is a week of training going to do? Sakura grumbled under her breath. Naruto tried not to smirk, since a week in the depths could do plenty for someone with old blood. Kakashi ignored the kunoichi. See those trees at the end of the bridge? You're going to climb them. He explained. Without using your hands, he continued at their incredulous expressions, using only chakra. This exercise will teach you to use your chakra to adhere to surfaces, as well as improve your general chakra control, both gathering speed and precision. He explained as he stepped over the guard railing and stuck to the side of the unfinished bridge before he began to walk to shore. Naruto imagined how useful that would be in the depths and grinned widely. Cool! He exclaimed as he hurried to follow the jonin. His teammates followed. Once they were at the trees, the jonin tossed 3 kunai down. Alright, mark your progress with these, gather the chakra to the soles of your feet and give it a go. You'll want a running start, he advised. The 3 genin picked up a kunai each, made the ram sign, focused their chakras, and ran at the tree. Naruto went horizontal eagerly to run up the tree, but as soon as his foot hit the wood it splintered and he was knocked rolling back. Sasuke made it a few steps but had a similar, albeit far less devastating, result. Although the Uchiha managed to cut the wood near his damage and flipped to his feet before he hit the ground, avoiding the roll the blonde had needed to do. Kakashi hummed, too much chakra and you'll just get knocked back, too little and you wouldn't have even stuck. He lectured, kind of amusing that the kunoichi who doesn't come from a once powerful clan is the one who got it on the first try. He continued and the boys noticed Sakura was at the top of her tree already. Naruto ran at the tree once again. If there was one thing the depths beneath Konoha taught him, it was persistence. Unfortunately, he did not focus his chakra, thus he used too little and he made it a few steps before his lack of adherence to the wood surrendered his body to gravity. Thankfully, he at least managed to cut his progress with the kunai this time. Sasuke's second attempt was similar. Even if there was some slight progress to be seen from the 2, Kakashi decided they needed extra motivation. Sakura-chan seems closest to the title of Hokage-sama at this rate, and it certainly makes the distinguished Uchiha clan seem second-rate. He mused intentionally. Kakashi-sensei, how could you? Sakura snapped, convinced Sasuke would hate her now. The Uchiha paid her no mind as he and the Uzumaki ran at the tree again. Hours later left Sasuke Uchiha panting breathlessly, sweating, and baffled. He knew the Uzumaki were supposed to have more stamina, but there should be a limit to that, right? Naruto was using Kage Bunshin to scout and patrol while training, but still Sasuke was tired first. There was more than just expending chakra to the exercise, of course. They were running around trying to get up the trees and there was an additional strain against gravity when their chakra finally anchored them to the wood. Naruto wasn't even winded. He never needed more than a few moments to catch his breath, and he had quickly matched pace with Sasuke. The Uchiha had tried to maintain a gap but it hadn't worked. The blonde was overtaking him purely because he could not train for as long. It was as humbling as it was infuriating to the Uchiha, who groaned, "Do you just not get tired?" he complained loudly. Naruto flinched. He'd been so focused on trying to get to the top of the tree he hadn't noticed his teammates' exhausted state. He then compared it to his own status and realized how it seemed. I guess not. I never really thought about it. Must be an Uzumaki thing, you know. He lied, fairly sure it had to do with the old blood. Although Kakashi had implied it was an Uzumaki thing, and the adults seemed to think the Kyuubi enhanced it somehow. Naruto would go for that excuse if his teammates ever found out Uzumaki did not heal wounds in the blink of an eye or have nigh limitless stamina normally. Thankfully, Sasuke seemed to accept that excuse for now, and Naruto returned to trying to climb the tree with his chakra. That night Naruto managed to get away to his hiding hole. A Bunshin checked it was safe and he returned to the dream. While the blonde wanted to give his body a break, he knew someone stumbling on his hiding spot was a possibility, so instead he returned to the operating theater. The blonde inhaled the thick underground air. It smelled coppery, earthen, a bit dusty. It was ironic that the place which had terrified the boy was now a refuge from his own team. Kakashi would no doubt notice him missing and have more stern words for him. Naruto had decided that harvesting some more chi no ishi and strengthening his body in preparation for Zabuza was a bit more important than not getting scolded, especially if it lowered the chances of anyone finding out he'd get back up if he died. The dungeon had changed as it always did, and he saw the shadow of a cloaked, desiccated humanoid holding a simple bladed weapon like a sword, although it looked more like a side blade affixed to a short handle. The blonde crept up on it before he swung and extended his cleaving blade at the humanoid beast's neck. The cleaving side of Nokojiriboko took the creature off guard and it died. Down the hall behind it a light source moved. Naruto forgot the beasts sometimes used each other as bait instead of fighting each other. The genin charged the light source, another desiccated humanoid, this one with a spiked club and a lantern but no cloak, raised the lantern and opened its mouth. Naruto snapped Nokojiriboko shut, and the sharp top of the blade sliced through the creature's neck. Blood sprayed over the boy who delighted in another successful hunt. Naruto decided to go deeper, curious about what else he could run into. He holstered his weapon and made a Kage Bunshin to scout ahead as he checked his pocket watch. Soon he heard a loud thunderous sound echo out and got the impression of his Bunshin being dispelled. "Did I just get shot?" Naruto asked dryly. He did not want to lose his chi no ishi, so he was hesitant to see what actually shot him. If it was someone mobile, a good shot, and not just a trap he'd stumbled into, then he should retreat. With no way of knowing, the blonde decided to go the way of caution and left a Kage Bunshin to watch the hallway as he retreated back to the operating theater. He still had plenty of time before morning, so he'd let his body rest while he relaxed in the dream. Naruto awoke to the sounds of early morning birds. He double-checked his pocket watch as he left his rest spot. It was hard to see as it was before sunrise, but the hands indicated it was sometime before 5 in the morning. The blonde was satisfied with that, and put the watch away as he began creating Kage Bunshin to replace the ones who had dispelled during his trip. Then he returned to Tezuna's home. He still had not prepared a lie for Kakashi, but he didn't exactly have much time to worry about it. At that point Naruto was hoping to sneak in and pretend he had been there the entire time. Maybe if he was insistent enough everyone would believe him. Then he realized he was still covered in blood, a slight problem the blonde had overlooked when he went into the depths. Maybe I am stupid? Any further thoughts the blonde had were halted by a distant bang, and one of his recently created Kage Bunshin dispelling. The impression of what killed them was a vague phantom pain across his back. Naruto stiffened as he considered the options. Zabuza was supposed to be an assassination specialist, so it could be that he was making another move, but that sound was oddly familiar. The blonde almost ran into his sensei as he started to rush into Tezuna's house. The jonin had hands on his hips and a stern expression on what little was visible of his face, which dropped at the sight of the blonde covered in blood. "Where have you been?" he asked. "I slept in the woods because I'm not comfortable sleeping around people." Naruto told the lie he had come up with quickly. "I didn't die, so it's fine, but one of the Kage Bunshin I made to patrol when I woke up got dispelled just before I got here," he explained. Kakashi's eye had narrowed at the beginning, but by the end of the explanation it was wide with concern. "Why are you covered in blood?" he asked. "The thing about that is," Naruto began to explain before a loud sound echoed to them from across the woods and another impression of a Bunshin being dispelled entered Naruto's brain. "Okay, would Zabuza use a gun?" he asked. Kakashi shook his head, confused. "Did one of your Kage Bunshin get shot by someone?" he asked. "That wasn't common?" Guns weren't exactly common. They were expensive despite being easy to use, and they had a reputation for being harder to maintain than other weapons. For that matter, why did the blonde genin recognize such an obscure weapon? And it still did not explain the blood. Despite it being a while since using an explosion to propel a projectile was developed and a few advances had been made, they never took off as a war weapon after the Sengoku Jidai due to the prevalence of shinobi who never bothered with them. Some samurai had made use of them, but Kakashi wasn't really sure whether or not modern samurai bothered with modern firearms. It was entirely possible Gato had hired some mercenary with a firearm of some kind though. Naruto nodded. I think so, that's what that sound is, right? He asked, trying to seem more uncertain than he was. Kakashi frowned under his mask. The blonde should not have any way to recognize the sound of a gun. But maybe his bunshin had seen the weapon but not the wielder? The Hatake nodded as he considered it. That was a gunshot. It's possible a civilian hunter is in the area, he began. Naruto scoffed. The nearby village is way too poor for that. He pointed out, I think my Kage bunshin saw like one gun while looking around, and it was owned by a guy who runs one of the few functioning stores. It wasn't for sale. He explained. Kakashi thought about it, and realized Tazuna's household didn't seem to have one either. Then again, his home wasn't that far from the rest of the village, and wasn't exactly farmland. Still, boars could be around. The Hatake wondered how the family dealt with that. Go wake your teammates, Kakashi ordered. He'd asked Tazuna about how the family defended from wildlife, or if it was even necessary. When they were not dealing with someone hunting his student's Kage bunshin, I'll keep watch. Naruto rushed inside. His right hand held his holstered weapon steady as he jogged towards the room his team shared. Sakura was already awake and leaning over a sleeping Sasuke. What are you doing? The blonde asked. The pink-haired girl gave a strangled yelp and leaped away from the Uchiha as the commotion woke the other male genin of Cell 7. What? Where were you? Sakura snapped, flustered even as she turned the focus on the blonde before she paled. I was out, Naruto answered vaguely. We might be under attack soon, come on. He added, motioning for the two to follow him. Sasuke seemed to need no time at all to get ready. Sakura swiftly followed the two boys outside. You going to explain who is attacking? Sasuke asked on their way out the door. A little annoyed, the blonde with the news had been silent for the 5-second walk. He eyed the blood. Some of it was fresh, but a little bit of it seemed to be drying. Naruto shrugged. I dunno, they've shot 2 of my Kage bunshin. He answered. With a gun? Sakura asked incredulously. Who even uses those? Sasuke asked, equally as incredulous. Clearly, whoever shot me used a gun, Naruto retorted dryly. They shot your Kage bunshin, Naruto-kun, Kakashi corrected. It's not healthy to think of their deaths as yours. He lectured. The blonde didn't see how it mattered since he had literally died on 2 occasions before he even figured out the jutsu. What kind of gun? Sakura asked, curious. Kakashi raised an eyebrow. You would be able to tell? He asked. He knew the kunoichi had high grades, but he would be surprised if she knew a lot about firearms too. Sakura flushed. Well, you know the Harunos used to be farmers, and Otosan was worried I may encounter firearms doing missions for the village, so I've had some crash courses. We don't have one back home though. I think Ojiji sold it when he moved to Konoha, she explained. Kakashi had not considered that. Okay, well, I cannot identify firearms by sound, he answered. Me either, Naruto said, surprised he was able to say that honestly. He had no idea who or what shot him. Plus, the acoustics above and below ground were different, so it wasn't like he would be able to tell if it was a gun from down there. He'd only encountered one through a Kage bunshin. It occurred to Naruto that he was running into guns a lot more often lately as Sasuke rolled his eyes. You got shot, and you didn't even see what did it? He asked, and the blonde knew his teammate must never know it actually happened thrice. His Kage bunshin got shot, Kakashi corrected idly. Naruto did not correct them on the number of times. Still, their chakra constructs with the exact same abilities, right? So if they couldn't avoid it, he couldn't, Sasuke pointed out. Kakashi sighed. Well, it doesn't really matter what kind of weapon it is if you don't see the attack coming, he pointed out. Sakura nodded. Besides, while guns may have failed to make waves, they should not be underestimated. A bullet in the wrong spot can kill, and the explosion propels the projectile too fast to actually dodge. But you can avoid that with Kawarimi no Jutsu or by just not being in the spread of where the barrel is pointing, she lectured at length. Kakashi pat the pink-haired girl on the head for her teaching assistance. Naruto frowned. Man, I should have practiced Kawarimi more, he muttered. You have been practicing your chakra control, Kakashi reminded him. Just keep your hands free and an eye out, he advised. Any more Kage bunshin dispelled? He asked. The blonde shook his head. Odd, the jonin commented. Then Tazuna opened his front door. "Hey, you ninja, coming in dash?" He began but was cut off by another gunshot. Chapter 8: Crash Against the Harbor. Kakashi covered Tazuna with his body. The bullet had hit the man, but from what the Jonin could tell it wasn't fatal, although a piece of metal in the shoulder would be painful and need medical attention. He ducked into the house with the bridge builder and glanced out to see Sasuke and Sakura had taken cover to break line of sight. Of course, the Jonin figured Naruto would disappear. The blonde was already rushing towards the sound of the gunshot with his right hand on his holstered Nokojuriboko. It had been closer that time. Whoever it was, they were at the edges of his usual patrols. Then Kage Bunshin started dispelling. This time he got impressions of fights. His enemies included Gozu, a pair of katana-wielding men he didn't recognize that had needed to work together to defeat one Kage Bunshin and were now wounded, and someone shooting at him while retreating. Naruto supposed charging headlong at the one shooting at him may have been ill-advised. One of the assassins had a grudge against him, another was probably Zabuza, who would only need one clean hit to kill him, and a gunshot accompanied by a bullet impacting a tree at his head height indicated the shooter had spotted him. Being seen by someone trying to shoot at the genin, and the blonde knowing it, was a hair-raising experience. He made a cross with the first two fingers of each hand as he crouched, Taiju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. He intoned and then he sprinted among his horde of 50 Bunshin as they all made ram signs to focus their chakra. The idea was to use the Kage Bunshin as cover combined with Kawarimi to not get shot. Naruto was sure that probably had something to do with guns not seeing much use against shinobi. Kakashi had even mentioned Kawarimi, so the blonde couldn't help but smirk as the next bullet that struck a Kage Bunshin hit a log instead of dispelling the chakra construct. Finally Naruto saw the shooter, a man holding a long rifle retreating into town guarded by some men with swords, one of whom had a war scythe. The idea Zabuza could spring out and kill him at any moment occurred to the blonde, but he suppressed that as he and his horde of Kage Bunshin charged into the town. The onlooking townsfolk had been given a speech about being given a demonstration of what would happen to anyone else who tried to oppose Gato when the sharpshooter assassin that the shipping magnate hired had been sent to execute the bridge builder. Many had winced, a few looked away, but none moved to do anything against Gato's hired killers. So they were surprised to see a small army of bloodied blonde boys wielding strange weapons rush from the trees towards Tazuna's home. The gunman pulled out a pistol sidearm and took shots, but each boy he shot turned into a log in a cloud of smoke. The stunned men standing guard moved to intercept the one genin army, but while they managed to dispel a few, one Naruto withstood a glancing blow, marking him out as the original as he swung his extending blade out to tear into the throat of the man with the war scythe. Naruto blinked and tilted his head down in time with the arterial spray in a practiced subconscious movement, thus he avoided getting any in his eyes. Then he stepped towards the next closest armed opponent as his Kage Bunshin moved to surround the men. The gunman pointed his pistol and the genin jolted aside as a loud gunshot rang out. The blonde found that it echoed less above ground, but it was far too loud to be fired so close to his ears. He lifted his left hand to the handle of his Nokojuriboko and adjusted the angle of his swing as he did. The cleaving side of the weapon came down harshly with a sickening crack into the left shoulder of the gunman. Two swords came at Naruto's head from either side. The blonde dived, his blade folded shut as he rolled off the corpse he just made. The genin came up swinging, his Nokojuriboko snapping open again to knock aside the swinging blade of a third swordsman before the boy hopped up and towards the man to swing the cleaving side of his blade through that man's neck. Two more swordsmen came from the woods along with Gozu. They actually had proper katanas. Naruto glanced at the other two swords. One looked like a homemade machete, and the other seemed to be similar, or at least similarly homemade. Naruto glanced at the final person that stood with them, mentally cataloging these men as separate from the townsfolk. The short guy was shorter than him. The blonde raised an eyebrow. "Who are you?" he asked, assuming the short older man was a hostage of some kind, but for some reason no one had done anything about that. The man looked panicked behind his round shades. "All right, Zabuza, I get it. Now get out here and kill the brat," the man ordered, and the blonde frowned. "Tempting," Zabuza confessed as Gozu stepped up, "but he's not in the contract. If he gets in my way when I go after Tazuna I will, but until then I think Gozu wants a rematch." The Nukenin mused, his voice thrown around to distort his position. Naruto frowned. I'll stop you from killing Tazuna, he said simply, earning a chuckle from the hidden Nukenin and an annoyed glare from the remaining hired killers. Then the blonde turned to the short man. Are you Gato? He asked bluntly. What of it? I'm going to kill you, Naruto answered before he started to walk at the shipping magnate. Gozu charged, but the former Kiri-chunin was irritated that the blonde was not fully focused on him. The blonde dodged around him for a moment, but the boy seemed on edge, uncomfortable, not fully focused. Naruto was worried Zabuza would attack at any moment. It seemed like he would not, but the boy did not want to lower his guard. The blonde tried to keep the rising sun to his back so he would spot any shadows moving behind him. It was the only light source he had. Gozu landed a glancing strike, for claw marks down Naruto's right arm as the blonde dashed past the older ninja. The genin's left hand reached into his tool pouch as his right lifted Nokojiriboko to parry the worst of the attack. His eyes locked onto Gato as he extended his weapon at Gozu on his way past the older shinobi to force some distance. The four swordsmen, if two of them could be called that, moved to intercept. Gato paled. Wade he tried to begin to bargain as Naruto pulled out a flintlock pistol, pointed it at Gato, and squeezed the firing mechanism. The bang was strangely quieter than the more modern firearm that had been fired before, and with a dark red muzzle flash that smelled like burned metal. Gato fell as red blossomed from a point in the middle of his chest. Naruto had expected the man to be knocked back from the kick he felt of the bullet exiting the barrel, but instead the shipping magnate simply dropped like a puppet with the strings cut. It was one thing for a non-shinobi mercenary to have a firearm. It was another for a genin to pull one out and use it like that. Naruto had never actually shot it before, so he was just glad he hit the correct target. He just shot Gato. One of the actual swordsmen, a man with a beanie and eyeliner, pointed out the obvious in a panic. Who pays us now? The other one with the actual sword asked, a scarred man who was shirtless. The four non-shinobi hired mercenaries eyed the town greedily. Well, there was no dead man's switch assuring I'd be paid for Tazuna's death, so we're out of here, Gozu. Zabuza's voice ordered dryly. Gozu looked irritated, but You can take him out later when Nezu has recovered and he actually has a bounty for this incident. Zabuza interrupted and the Kiri-chunin disappeared with a scowl. Naruto turned to the remaining four. If you act like Yaju to these townsfolk, I'll put you down like Yaju, he said coldly. The four tensed up as they debated fighting the blonde over the small, poor village. Not worth it, the beanie-wearing swordsman muttered before he fled, the other three breaking after him. Naruto stiffened when he noticed the townsfolk staring at him. They'd seen him fight, seen him kill. Then it hit him that he'd killed regular, normal humans, not even really shinobi. The three corpses suddenly stood out starkly to him. He had barely even registered haze of chi no ishi going into him from their blood. That shinobi kid just killed Gato and saved Nami no Kuni. Hey, why didn't Shisui-san ever just shoot Gato? I was as scared as any of you, don't look at me like that. Naruto blinked olishly as he was offered moderately clean rags and some men started moving the corpses. He wiped his face as he wondered at the reactions of the people. He wondered if they understood how it felt to kill. But maybe they were just so grateful for the savior that they only cared about making that hero feel accepted. The blonde felt something was off about the way things were working. He killed Mizuki and became a genin. He kills Gato and some hired mercenaries and he becomes a hero. He didn't think to send a Kage Bunshin back to his team until he'd almost finished wiping himself down. By mid-morning a bandaged Tazuna was being looked at by a retired doctor as Kakashi pulled Naruto aside. Why were you covered in blood and what the hell was that? He asked sternly. Naruto had racked his brain for an answer to the first one, but his Kage Bunshin had spotted a solution. A close inspection might reveal the timing or weaponry wasn't right. It was the best excuse Naruto had. Some big boar attacked me early this morning, and that was, I did the mission right? He asked. Kakashi frowned under his mask. Our mission was to protect Tazuna, not assassinate a shipping magnate with more net worth than some daimyo. He snapped. Naruto pouted. Well, yeah, but he was trying to kill Tazuna, and he hurt all these people. He grumbled, then he looked longingly at the celebrating people. They didn't even mind their savior being stained with blood. He was hiding behind others, he didn't even fight, but he was such a massive problem. Kakashi sighed. Just because we can kill doesn't mean we should. That's why we follow orders and complete missions, to take those decisions out of our hands," he explained. Naruto frowned, then he shook his head. "No, I can't accept that," he said simply. "I can't just be an unfeeling thing that kills for no reason," he stammered. Kakashi felt a bit sympathetic at that. He assumed the boy spoke of the kitsune or was perhaps hinting at something to do with Danzo. In this case, "I can't scold you too much, Gato was a problem to the mission. But you're a bit too young for the bounty that will bring down on you," he explained. Naruto just shrugged lazily. "I'll be fine," he assured confidently. "Now where did you get a gun?" Naruto stiffened. "It's mine," he insisted. "I didn't steal it," he clarified. It had been down in a place owned by no one but the monsters after all. Kakashi raised an eyebrow. He looked at the weapon. He decided to let it slide for now since it didn't seem like the kind of weapon anyone would be missing anyway. "Well, I'm impressed that you actually hit someone with that antique. But it's not really a shinobi weapon, is it?" he asked. Naruto shrugged again. "Does it matter? Shinobi use anything as weapons, don't we?" he asked as he stashed the pistol back in his tool pouch. Kakashi did not have a good response for that. "Fair point, but you're an odd one," he said with a chuckle as he turned to leave the boy alone for a moment. Then he noticed the scratches in the right sleeve of his student's jacket. "Goza managed to hit you?" he asked, suddenly alarmed. Naruto couldn't deny it, and was swiftly dragged towards a doctor, but the boy paled and pulled out of his sensei's grip. "I feel fine, really," he insisted. "Look, my arm is already closed up, the poison probably can't even hurt me," he tried to assure just to avoid a medical professional having a close look at him. Kakashi had no idea that the blonde didn't want the man to notice something, but he accepted and kept an eye on the boy. He was resolved to get the boy to the retired doctor if needed, but throughout the day the blonde really did seem to be fine. By sunset, Cell 7 were returning with a Tazuna who probably should not have been drinking. Inari was eyeing the blonde strangely as they entered and Tsunami fussed. "Otosan, you shouldn't drink after an injury like that," she scolded. Sasuke and Sakura were eyeing the blonde as well, both curious and suspicious. Both had learned throughout the day that Naruto had been the one to kill Gato, with a gun. They never saw the flintlock, so without the full story they just assumed the blonde genin used a gun he picked up off an assassin he killed. Sasuke was not sure what to make of Naruto. The blonde had been different ever since he went missing that day he painted the Hokage monument. His growth had been rapid. The shorter boy had outpaced the Uchiha too quickly for Sasuke to be comfortable with. Sakura was trying to rationalize it. She figured maybe the Uzumaki really were amazing and that Naruto just never really tried all that seriously before. That explanation made sense to the kunoichi. "You really killed Gato?" Inari's voice silenced the small dining room. Naruto nodded as he looked at the younger boy. "Yeah, I'm pretty sure he can't get back up," he assured. "He was really weak actually. He just hid behind stronger guys who were greedy for money," he added. "Yaju?" he grumbled under his breath. Inari frowned as he furrowed his brow. "But how? Why were you strong enough to kill Gato when no one else was before?" he snapped, upset despite the happy situation. Naruto was taken aback, surprised by the attitude the young boy had towards his home being saved. "I don't know, I just told you he was actually weak. He couldn't intimidate me like he could all of you, so all that power he pretended to have was useless, you know," the blonde answered as he scratched the back of his head. "Like I told you, he was just a Nijin. Our bodies die real easy," he finished morbidly. "So if you could have died too, why weren't you scared?" Inari asked. Naruto blinked. He hadn't expected that question. He had in fact been terrified of his secret being revealed, of failing, of dying without stopping Gato, of being forced to go into hiding by faking his own death to preserve his secret. So the blonde genin wasn't sure what to say. I guess I was," he confessed bashfully. "I just decided Gato was causing too much pain to others," he muttered. Kakashi sighed. "That's not the kind of decision to be made lightly. I hope you don't come to regret saving this land and its people when Gato's allies put a bounty on you," he lectured. Naruto shrugged. "Maybe it'll be higher than yours?" he joked lightly. Sakura rolled her eyes. Even if Kakashi-sensei never killed anyone as rich and powerful as Gato personally, he's still a veteran jonin. He's probably got compounded bounties from multiple enemies. She pointed out. Tsunami decided not to think about how disturbing it was for preteens to be child soldiers that spoke like that. She would make dinner for them instead to thank them for protecting her father and saving her home from Gato. Without an immediate threat, Naruto found it easier to get away in the night after dinner, after his team was mostly asleep. Kakashi might be annoyed again, but the blonde would be careful not to return covered in blood this time. The trees creaked in the wind and the blonde stopped. One branch creaked more as if something heavier landed on it. Naruto looked up and saw the masked shinobi who had been hunting Zabuza. "Don't you have prey to catch?" the blonde genin asked. "You made things very difficult by killing Gato." Naruto frowned. The masked ninja seemed annoyed with him for some reason. "Well, he made things difficult by being alive," he retorted, a little more snappish than he'd intended, but he was still a bit mixed up over the whole killing humans thing. "So you just kill anyone who inconveniences you?" Naruto frowned at the accusatory tone. "Why do you even care?" he asked with a suspicious glare at the Oinin. "Gato made the people of Nami no Kuni suffer. He forced them to live in poverty. How could I just let that happen?" he asked. "I could stop it, so I did." The masked shinobi was silent for a moment. "Did you think of the consequences, though? You'll be a scapegoat for the bounty of the one who killed Gato. Rich people will want you dead, more people similar to Gato," he asked. Naruto groaned. "Who cares?" he asked. "I'll be fine. They'll come after me and we'll fight, and someone will die. Whatever happens after that happens," he explained, exasperated. The masked shinobi tensed up, glanced around, and then looked back down at Naruto before he hopped down to be at ground level. "Fine," he said in a resigned tone. "If I'd be honest with you, will you be honest with me?" Naruto raised an eyebrow as he crossed his arms. "You must think I'm pretty stupid to fall for that," he grumbled. "I don't care what secret you have. It does not match any of mine," he insisted, giving away perhaps a bit too much saying just that. The Oinin removed his mask, revealing a familiar and pretty young face. Naruto blinked. "Haku?" he asked as his brow furrowed. "Why are you an Oinin?" he asked, then his eyes widened. "Oh, did your teammate get burned really badly?" he asked. Haku sighed and shook his head. "No, that plant also helps restore iron in those suffering from blood loss when ingested," he explained. "It was from Eizu." Naruto blinked. "Wait, you," he began. A frown crossed his features as he trailed off and became thoughtful. "I was working for Zabuza-san the whole time," Haku revealed. "Now please, why are you so lonely? Why do you not even trust your team? You were on your way to that spot I found you in again to sleep, right?" he asked rapid fire. Naruto blinked rapidly and shook his head. "Hold on, you were working with Zabuza? Why didn't you try to kill any of us?" he asked. That part did not quite add up. "I asked first? My secrets are more important. You just need time to think of a lie. Be that as it may." "I knew it." "Look, this is serious. Wait, am I fraternizing with an enemy?" Haku rolled his eyes. "We stopped being enemies when you killed Gato. That might change in the future, but for now we can talk," he answered. Naruto sighed and sat down on a mossy rock. "Alright, fine, but first, why did you not just try to kill me when we first met?" he asked. Haku shrugged. "I considered it, but you startled me, then you caught me off guard with how kind you tried to be," he confessed. "Also, I noticed some similarities between us," he added. "Similarities?" Naruto asked. Haku nodded sadly. "You're lonely. You have a power you never asked for and it scares you, but you want to be acknowledged, right?" he asked. Naruto stiffened at how accurate that was. "How?" he asked thinly. "I was born with a Kekkai Genkai," Haku answered. "Cursed blood, just like you," he continued, and the blood of the shorter ninja ran cold at those words. "People fear what they don't understand. I recognized you could see that. But you mentioned protecting your team and I was confused because you never seemed comfortable around them." Naruto considered if he should tell Haku. The older boy might not believe him, but they might never interact again after tonight. So the blonde hunched over as he considered how to say what he wanted to say. "I don't think I'm a ninja anymore," he said quietly. "I don't think I can fully explain it, but he hesitated and licked his lips. I don't want to be like this. I don't want to be a big mono, but blood smells so sweet and making those men stop so they wouldn't hurt anyone felt good and… Haku was surprised. Whatever he expected, this breakdown was not it. Tears began to form in Naruto's eyes at some point and Haku interrupted. I'm sorry, he said quickly. He realized towards the end that his own accusations earlier were part of that breakdown, and he felt a bit guilty. I don't think a Bakemono would worry about being one. He added, you seem like a kind boy to me. Naruto sighed and slumped deeper into himself. I can heal from mortal wounds, and the actual reason I was able to track Zabuza was the smell of blood on his sword. He said dryly, I heal faster when I get other blood in my wounds. He added. Haku opened his mouth to answer, closed it for a moment, then opened it again. Okay, I have to admit that is a bit more horrifying than my Kekkei Genkai, he confessed. Naruto decided not to correct the older boy about the nature of his abilities. What do you do anyway? He asked. Hayatan. Naruto stared blankly at the pretty boy. You can make ice? He asked. You thought that was cursed? He added with a raised eyebrow. Haku flushed. Okay, I admit it sounds less terrifying than vampirism, magic eyes, and controlling your bones, but still. He defended himself, then he frowned sadly. Chijiri no Sato began the process of killing anyone with a Kekkei Genkai a while ago. He explained. Ah, Naruto verbalized, that is pretty cursed. He agreed, then his eyes widened. That's why Zabuza tried to kill the Mizukage. That's why you guys are, he began, then he groaned. Could you tell Meizu I'm sorry I carved him up like that? He asked. Haku blinked, then he giggled. I shouldn't, they'll be mad if they found out why I really stayed behind. He confessed. Oh, well, in that case please don't tell Zabuza about the blood thing, Naruto requested as he relaxed a bit. Promise to keep my very existence as Zabuza-san's accomplice a secret? Haku asked with a smile. Naruto returned it with a grin. Sure, Kakashi-sensei will be mad, but I'll just say I was with that pretty boy I thought was a girl again. He agreed. It's not even a lie, he added with a smirk. Haku smirked. Your team might start to think things about you, he pointed out. Naruto shrugged. Better they think I like girly boys than they know what we were talking about, he answered, and the other boy could only nod in response. Thank you, by the way, he added. I really needed to hear the things you said, he confessed. Haku smiled and put his mask back on. Well, I was glad to help, Naruto-san, he said formally, although there was now a familiarity to his tone and the blonde felt a bit less lonely. I'll try to encourage Gozu and Meizu to leave you alone, he added a bit more softly. I'm sure Zabuza-san will be fine taking some missions away from Hai no Kuni for a while. Naruto nodded gratefully. I hope we get to see each other again though, he added quietly before the older boy disappeared. He barely caught the nod before Haku disappeared with Shunshin. Kakashi raised an eyebrow down at the disheveled Naruto lying on the forest floor. What is it this time? He asked dryly. A white rabbit crossed my path when I got up to enjoy the stars, Naruto lied smoothly. White rabbits aren't bad luck, Kakashi retorted. In fact, their feet are said to bring good luck, he added. Naruto frowned. That's weird. I don't want feet in my vague analogy, he said blandly. What? Kakashi asked. Wait, actually, what were you doing this time? He asked. I was seeing that guy that looks like a girl again, Naruto answered honestly. Not sure why I thought of a white rabbit. He lied. He was pretty sure he had an idea of who he had actually detected that day before Zabuza first attacked. Kakashi raised an eyebrow. You went out secretly to see another boy under the stars because you think he looks pretty. He repeated the situation he'd been given, and it still sounded weird. I swear, prettier than Sakura-chan, Naruto swore honestly. Alright, you know what, never mind, Kakashi decided with a sigh. The threat is gone for the most part, so I'll let it slide. But you need to stop sneaking off during missions like this, he warned. Naruto shrugged. Okay, he promised, knowing well enough that he would be unable to keep it. Thankfully, the Jonin seemed to accept the inability to sleep around others' part, and Naruto was indeed given his own room. Of course, Tsunami said, it's nice you didn't want to impose, but you really should have said something earlier. She scolded lightly. Hero or not, we'd rather give you a bed than let you sleep outside like that. Naruto wasn't sure how to take it, but he accepted the room at least. He just wasn't sure if he should set up another tombstone in Nami no Kuni, and he definitely couldn't go teleporting his sleeping body from the room. The boy decided to spend any time in the dream practicing chakra control or reading. Rarely towards the end of the week he began to do both. The mission became routine, no new threats appeared, and Cell 7 were local heroes. Naruto liked being a local hero. It felt good, it was an excellent distraction, and it reminded him he'd used the old blood to do something good. Then he heard the nickname for him, Tosatsashikun. Was not a nice or heroic title, it sounded more like the nickname for a serial killer, and the honorific they gave him only juxtaposed it. The blonde genin knew it was supposed to be flattering, and the people said it fondly. He supposed it was meant to be a bit ironic to have such a harsh title applied to him given his appearance, but it was also an acknowledgement of how swiftly and easily he slaughtered 3 men despite their attempts to defend themselves. Finally, Tezuna's workforce had nearly finished the bridge. Despite not liking the reminders of his ability to kill, Naruto did still enjoy the positive attention and would miss the people. Plus, he did have to acknowledge that being an assassin was in his job description, which was a professional killer at the end of the day, so the people were just trying to say he was good at his job. "Thank you all for coming to protect me while I finish this super bridge," Tezuna said gratefully. "You all came here even knowing I flubbed the mission parameters. You did the right thing, and you killed Gato for us." He finished, the last part clearly directed at Naruto. "You're all welcome back anytime," Tsunami promised cheerfully. Naruto wondered if that offer would stand if he teleported into her house. "He has to come back," Inari insisted, teary-eyed. Naruto smiled. "I'm sure I'll be able to make time to come visit," he promised, already decided that Nami no Kuni was going to be the first place he'd think to hide if he died publicly. "You better," Tezuna said with a falsely stern tone and an amused smirk. "I've already decided to name the bridge after the hero who killed Gato once and for all," he explained. Sakura gawked as it was revealed the bridge would be named after the blonde. She was swiftly forced to come to terms with the fact that she now lived in a world where Naruto was actually reliable and capable, and from strong blood like Sasuke. The Uchiha just looked bored, but he let their blonde teammate have his moment. Hiruzen Sarutobi kept his face impassive as he smoked his pipe and listened to the mission report. "Why did you let Meizu go?" he asked. "I determined his value was not worth the risk, that he would either be picked up by allies and be too wounded to be a problem or picked up by Oinen," Kakashi answered calmly. Hiruzen nodded. It was an understandable decision given that the Jonin needed to protect 3 genin and the client, Naruto-kun. "Why did you insist on completing the mission?" he asked. Naruto frowned. "It was the right thing to do," he answered with a shrug. It was the only excuse he had. The Sandaime Hokage sighed out a cloud of smoke. "You've a good heart," he began, and the blonde resisted the urge to joke about it pumping evil blood. But what if Tezuna had been even more deceptive? It was truly not worth risking your lives, he lectured. Naruto managed not to make a sound at the joke of a concept that was risking his life. "Sorry, I just didn't want to take the chance, I guess," he muttered. "As if you considered the chance," Sasuke jibed, earning a glare from the blonde. Kakashi shook his head. "It was my fault for agreeing with Naruto-kun's assessment at the end of the day, but we did end up surviving and completing the mission with minimal injuries and acceptable casualties," he finished. "Gato was acceptable casualties then?" Hiruzen asked sharply. "Yes," Naruto answered. "I can't have been wrong about that. Those people needed him gone and there was no other way," he insisted. Hiruzen deflated at how certain the blonde boy was. "I merely worry about the consequences for you, Naruto-kun," he assured. "You're definitely going to get a bounty," he warned. Naruto sighed. "Yeah, I know," he groused. "I get it. Enemy ninja are going to be less likely to go easy on me for being a kid because my head is going to be worth some money. Some greedy bastards will try to kill me dishonorably just to get that money." He listed. "I know, I'll be fine," he insisted. He wondered if there would be a situation where someone collected the bounty, and then he got back up at home in Konoha. Would that person have to give back the money? Hiruzen sighed deeply. "Your confidence is as alarming as what has happened," he muttered. "Here, your pay slips for the mission. Take a few days off before you return for another," he ordered as he held out the 4 slips of paper. The first thing Naruto spent his new money on was ramen, but given how much he got for AC rank, split between 4 shinobi, he could understand why Tazuna could not afford anything higher. The man had even promised to send further payments to make up for the false mission statement, with interest. Naruto thought the interest was a bit much of a punishment. The people really had been desperate, and he had seen it. They were starving, downtrodden, stealing from each other just to survive. The fact that he'd helped save them from that by killing Gato and helping to keep Tazuna alive made Naruto feel much better about himself. Unfortunately, the young blonde was quickly reminded of how little that mattered to the civilians of Konoha. He tried to ignore it, but the looks he and his weapon received were a bit disheartening. The people in Nami no Kuni, a small nation, had regarded Naruto as a hero for killing their local Bakemono, but to the adult civilians of Konoha he was a reminder of the worst devastation the village had ever suffered. The blonde wasn't even sure if the kitsune was still a factor. The idea of the Kyuubi having escaped his corpse when he'd first died terrified him, and he had no way of knowing if he still contained the chakra no Bakemono. He was pretty sure he would have run into it in the dungeon by now if that were the case, so he just had to work under the assumption he was still containing the Kyuubi no Yoko until proven otherwise. Thankfully, ramen was an excellent distraction to Naruto. Worries about his well-being, his inability to sleep, whether or not he even still needed to actually eat, all those were secondary when he was in the middle of enjoying ramen. 12 bowls. That's a new record for you. I am commented, dumbfounded as she counted the stack of bowls. Where do you even fit all that? She wondered. Never underestimate the metabolism of a growing boy. Tucci commented seriously, which only made the blonde wonder how much he would grow with the old blood in him. I was hungry. Naruto lied with a shrug as he paid for his meal. He had actually just zoned out while eating. The next thing Naruto spent money on was more clothes, more mesh undershirts, and another spare jacket that was similar to the other spare he bought. Then he just browsed ninja tools. He picked up a spool of steel wire and some more shuriken. Naruto examined a Kuzurigama curiously. It would certainly make him feel more like a shinobi to use that than his Noko Jiroboko. But he doubted the small sickle on the end of a chain would do much against the things beneath Konoha, so he looked over other weapons. Swords and axes seemed good but also a bit expensive, and some weapons were still too big for the young genin. He got a whetstone and some other tools instead in case anyone asked how he was maintaining the strange weapon he used. He couldn't very well say it did it automatically in his sleep using blood, and he definitely couldn't say he repaired it in his dreams, which affected reality. Tenten caught him as he was figuring out the purpose of a handheld drill bit. Getting new tools, or building something else? She asked curiously. Just new tools for now. Naruto answered nervously. They weren't actually replacements like she probably thought. So, not working on a new weapon yet? Tenten asked with a raised eyebrow. Naruto frowned. I've been busy, I guess. My team got our first C rank. He answered as he decided to get the drill bit just so he seemed to know what he was doing. It seemed to have multiple sizes in one pack at least. Tenten jolted back with wide eyes. Didn't you only graduate a couple of weeks ago? She asked. Naruto shrugged. Something like that. We just got back after we left a week ago. He answered. Tenten took a step back and reappraised the younger genin. Then she hummed, Wow, I didn't think you could even get C ranks that early. Your sensei must think highly of your team. She mused. Oh, I was bored of D ranks and insisted actually. Naruto confessed without thinking. Tenten frowned. Why not use the time doing D ranks to make a new weapon? She asked. Naruto stiffened as he realized his mistake. I guess I just really wanted to stretch my legs. He said, which was mostly honest. I was just being impatient, you know. He confessed. Tenten scoffed. Understatement. She muttered as she picked out a bunch of shuriken and kunai. Well, let me know if another idea for a weapon comes to you. I want to see your thought processes for how stuff like that came to be. She explained with a gesture to the Noko Jiroboko. Naruto was glad Tenten was more focused on his odd weapon than him. Unfortunately, she actually knew what she was talking about. Thankfully, she seemed to buy his story about making the weapon, although she did seem to want to figure out how he had done it. The blonde boy sighed to himself before paying for the things he wanted and needed, then he returned home. Chapter 9. Whatever it takes to be heroic. Naruto explored the dungeons beneath Konoha. He still didn't know the name of the supposedly lost civilization that predated the Sengoku Jidai, and that it predated the Sengoku Jidai was all he knew. Why there were weapons that looked as recent as the Sengoku Jidai despite that was not too weird. He clearly was not the first person down there since they became monster-filled ruins. The ruins had been there when the Shodai Hokage had laid the foundations of Konohagaku no Sato, and some Anbu variants seemed to guard the entrance. Not that guarding an entrance could stop a boy who could teleport directly into a bloody operating theater behind their defenses and among the beasts. The blonde genin hadn't found much writing. What little he could find seemed similar to kanji, so it was useless to him until he got better at literacy. Naruto was more of a practical shinobi. He had gotten better at navigating the depths too. The blonde ninja stalked silently along the ceiling over a trap before he dropped down on a desiccated humanoid with a cleaver and a torch. Nokojiriboko snapped open as Naruto fell, and he swung the cleaving edge of the blade into the left shoulder of his prey before he landed. The blonde was dressed in one of his spare jackets, and had left his hitate in his apartment on the surface. He knew how much the blood flowed in the depths. With a crack of bones, the sharp blade went halfway through the torso of the desiccated humanoid. Naruto ignored the spray of blood and listened for anything that had been alerted. Hearing nothing, he carefully extracted his weapon, folded it as the corpse dropped, then crouched to check the body. A single bloodstone could be harvested. The blonde wiped it on his pants before he put it in his tool pouch. Then he continued into the room beyond. There was a gate on the next door he saw after that, but also 2 sets of stairs going up on either side of the room to 2 elevated floors. Naruto saw a chest on the first elevated floor and looked around. He didn't see any traps, so he moved carefully and silently to the bottom of the stairs closest to him. He tried to get a glimpse of the top layer, but it was hard to see. He heard heavy breathing up there though. Beast did not sleep either. Something was waiting. Naruto focused his chakra to his feet and walked up the wall to get a better look. It was a pale fat thing, easily 4 times Naruto's size and with a massive cleaver. Dirty gray rags mercifully covered some of it. The blonde decided the cleaver was still actually a bit smaller than Kubikiribocho. Of course, the thing was guarding a bigger, far more ornate chest. Naruto looked at the first chest he saw. It was dark, so even for him it was hard to see if there was a pressure plate or some kind of mechanism on the chest. He needed a distraction, and he had the perfect ninjutsu. Crossing his first 2 fingers, Naruto created 4 Kage Bunshin, one of which went straight for the smaller chest as the other 3 made to distract the big fat humanoid. The original blonde watched carefully. No trap on the first chest, and once it was open he simply glanced inside, then rushed up to help the other Kage Bunshin. Naruto guessed whatever was there must not be too interesting or shocking and found 3 scraps of paper with red resin on them. He could hear the fat humanoid above trying and failing to kill his Kage Bunshin, but before he could go help, the metal gate opened below. Naruto had not considered the possibility of one of the beasts opening the gates like that. Another one of those desiccated pale humanoids, the smaller and thinner kind he was more used to. He made a running leap at it. His blade snapped out as he swung his weapon. The humanoid thing turned in time to receive an inward curved cleaver blade to the skull. It died without a sound, and Naruto kicked the corpse off his weapon as he turned to glance down the hallway beyond the now open gate. There was a hallway that led to a stone elevator and more desiccated husks of humanoid beasts. The impression of a Kage Bunshin being dispelling reminded him of the battle happening above, and he ran up the side of the wall, across the ceiling briefly, before he leaped and swung his extended Nokojiriboko at the back of the skull of the fat monstrosity. It fell without even a gurgle. Naruto didn't get used to how anticlimactic a death could be, since he had seen some death throes be rather vicious. It seemed to depend on where and how he hit the beasts. He stepped back as his Bunshin checked the bigger chest for traps and searched the grisly, bloated corpse. Holy crap, a blood gem! Naruto's attention snapped to the gem in the hands of the Kage Bunshin, retrieved from the bloated corpse. Nice. He agreed happily as he took it and inspected it. It was radial, but aside from that he had no idea what it did. The blonde joined his Bunshin at the larger chest to see what else there was, and frowned in confusion. It looked like corked bottles of blood. Do we even want these? One of the Bunshin asked. Maybe we can store it in the dream? Maybe the doll knows what they're for. Naruto guessed, she'll know what to do with the paper too. He added as he picked up and put the 2 bottles in his tool pouch. They barely fit, and he decided he would probably need Fuinjutsu at some point. Naruto decided to hunt the remaining creatures in front of that elevator before he returned to the dream. He needed more blood stones to actually unlock the radial blood gem imprint in Nokojuriboko, and more echoes would help him in the long run. They were no trouble to the young genin. Naruto had learned he needed Chi no Ishi for everything in the dream, so he saved upgrading himself for after he finally upgraded his weapon. He had found enough stones to upgrade Nokojuriboko with 2 left over. He inspected the sharp edge of the inner blade and the vicious-looking saw teeth. Next, the blonde attempted to slot his blood gem in, which the blonde had thought would be easy enough. He could not make it fit though, and after an hour of frustration he finally learned he was missing an entire tool that compressed the gem into place. Naruto had no idea how that worked, but he holstered his weapon and left the gem there for now as he checked the other workbench. He still wasn't entirely sure how to use it or what it was for yet. So he supposed he was missing another tool as he went out the other entrance to the shack and down the stairs towards his tombstones. Small white humanoids, the doll called them little ones, journal entries referred to them as shisha, emerged from the large stone chalice beneath the stairs. They'll sell you useful things for Chi no Ishi. The doll explained at his confused look. Naruto approached and they held up offered items, vials with sharp needles filled with blood, bottles with rags wrapped around the necks, bullets, and round pebbles for some reason. He supposed they were very round pebbles, but he stepped away from them for now. Actually, do you know what this is? Naruto asked as he pulled out one of the corked bottles. Pungent blood cocktail, matured blood that releases a strong smell. The doll answered, you are too young to drink it. She added. Why would I drink it? Naruto asked. The doll shook her head, do not worry. It is merely something some Ryoshi did to unwind. She answered, if opened and left somewhere it will attract Yaju. She added. Naruto wasn't sure why the doll thought he was too young for anything. He'd already died and killed, in that order no less. Either way, he put the blood cocktail away. What about these? He asked as he pulled out one of the scraps of paper. Swipe the resin side across the blade of your weapon to ignite it. Naruto thought that explanation explained little, but it sounded cool, so he would try it out next time. For now he stashed the paper in his tool pouch and stepped closer to the doll. He focused on his arcane as he closed his eyes. Naruto wanted to test out his new and improved weapon, but he had a career as a shinobi to keep up, so he met with his team early and joined them in waiting for Kakashi. Technically he was barely on time, but the Jonin never seemed to be on time. It was irritating enough that Naruto considered sending a Kage Bunshin, but when Kakashi did finally show up it was for either training or D ranks. If it was D ranks then it'd be fine, but if it was training the Kage Bunshin wouldn't last. Actually, even D ranks wasn't a certainty with that damned cat. So with the idea that he'd get caught anyway, Naruto reluctantly went to team meetings personally. Did you polish your blade? Sasuke asked him with a raised eyebrow. Naruto nodded, yeah. He answered simply. It was not all he had done, but they did no need to know that. It still looks kind of blood-stained, Sakura pointed out. That's because he honed the edge of the blade rather than just cleaning it. Sasuke noticed. Naruto was not aware the Uchiha was so observant. Lazy, Sakura scolded, but the blonde couldn't bring up how much effort it was to make sure he himself didn't show up to the meeting with blood in his hair or clothes, so he couldn't exactly defend himself. Finally Kakashi did indeed show up, long after the conversation had died down and the 3 genin were bored. I was sexually assaulted on my way to work. He excused far too smoothly for it to be true. What is wrong with you? Sakura asked, her eyes narrowed at that excuse. I'm a Jonin, Kakashi answered plainly. Anyway, are my adorable genin ready for D ranks? He asked, and the genin of Cell 7 sighed in unified exasperation. Okay, how are you doing that? Sakura asked as she watched her blonde teammate casually hold the leash of the largest dog they needed to walk. It was trying to drag the boy, but his feet held firmly to the ground as his body only tensed with strain when the dog tried to pull him away. Given the size and weight of the dog and boy, Sakura knew damn well Naruto should be getting dragged around. What? Kakashi-sensei taught us how to stick to stuff with chakra, remember? It works on more than just trees, you know. He answered dryly with a raised eyebrow. Sasuke was still pretty sure the blonde was displaying way more strength than his body should reasonably have. I think Sakura wants to know why your arm isn't being ripped out of its socket, he pointed out. Because I'm tough. Naruto answered with a huff. I dunno, Uzumaki are just built different, I guess? He excused with a shrug. Naruto sighed as he finished putting his money in his wallet and left the Hokage tower. He was glad D ranks at least paid because he hated them. They were boring chores that villagers paid genin to do. He didn't fully get the purpose. The blonde genin was sure there were better uses of his abilities, but he couldn't exactly give away too much about his abilities. That first C-rank mission had nearly completely blown his cover as it was, and on top of that he'd almost spilled everything to someone who was basically a stranger. Haku seemed to understand better than anyone though. The blonde decided to try catching up on his shinobi studies. He'd barely passed, and he was starting to better appreciate knowing what he was up against. So Naruto went to Konoha's public library, and wandered around aimlessly. He had no idea what he should be trying to read up on first. Eventually the genin found books on Fuinjutsu that were in hiragana, but he could barely understand the words in any of them, so he put them back and continued his search. Finally Naruto found a scroll on basic chakra theory and a book about the founding of the Shinobi Godaikoku. He had some difficulty checking them out, but the Chunin librarian eventually accepted that his Hittite was legitimate. Naruto spent the next week studying, albeit poorly since he was still not very good at it, before Kakashi seemed to spontaneously decide to take them on another C-rank mission. This one was another escort mission, but the client was another ninja. The shinobi Cell 7 was protecting was a plain-looking young man from Takigakure no Sato, allies with Konoha. The man was apparently their shinobi Gashira despite being only a chunin, plus he seemed younger than Irika. Naruto glanced at Shibuki as the Taki shinobi was startled by a bird. The man was also a coward. More than once he'd flinched when he lost sight of the blonde genin in the cell. The blonde wondered if he had seemed like that when he had first been jumpy and traumatized, but everyone else seemed exasperated with the chunin, while with him they had seemed worried. The blonde genin concluded that Shibuki was a bit of a wuss and a flake, which was why he needed a protection detail from Konoha. The fact that a cell of genin was doing such a mission and the short travel distance for a group of shinobi indicated that it was probably more of a diplomatic mission than anything. Despite having spent a week studying, Naruto couldn't recall anything that made Taki stand out, but he hadn't really looked into them much. He'd been more focused on Hai no Kuni, Mizu no Kuni, and the now-gone Yuzu no Kuni, which had once been the home of the Uzumaki clan. Naruto was pulled from morose thoughts of his dead clan by movement. His head snapped in the direction to see a pair of small kids running towards their group, Shibuki-sama. The children greeted in unison. The blonde was surprised the chunin was so well regarded. Shibuki smiled at the small boy and girl as they approached. Sorry, Shizuku-chan, Himatsu-kun, I can't play right now, he said apologetically as greeting. The two children pouted at that. We weren't gonna ask to play, we just wanted to say hello to Shibuki-sama. The young boy insisted, apparently named Himatsu, a boy with spiky black hair wearing a long-sleeved blue jacket and tan pants. The little girl, apparently Shizuku, with neck-length brown hair and pigtails, a pink zip-up dress with a yellow hem, and knee-length black tights, pouted. Yeah, we're supposed to clean the water before we play, she confessed sadly. Shibuki grinned. Well, lucky for you I brought these ninja from Konohagakure no Sato, they can help, he informed the children to cheer them up. Naruto's eye twitched. So this mission was chores all along, he grumbled, glaring at Kakashi who was smiling under his mask. This wasn't in the mission parameters. Sasuke denied quickly. He had no desire to do chores either. I think we can accept a simple D-rank mission from the Shinobi Gashira no Takigakure no Sato, Kakashi said in a formal tone before he slouched. Get to work, my adorable genin, he ordered with a dismissive wave. Naruto looked at the rubbish in the water and debated faking his own death. He decided against it ultimately as his team began to help the kids clean up. He took some solace that he'd still get C-rank pay, and this was all that had gone wrong. What's with that weird weapon? It doesn't look like a shinobi weapon, Naruto looked up at the two kids, then down at his weapon. It's my Nokojuriboko, he answered. It works. He added with a shrug. He did not feel like explaining it further than that. Why not just use a sword though? Himatsu asked with a raised eyebrow. Because a sword isn't big enough, not wide enough, it doesn't rend enough. I just like this weapon. Naruto answered. It does what I need it to do. It's creepy, Shizuku said blandly. The blonde couldn't help but laugh at the deadpan delivery. Shibuki was startled by another bird, this one carrying a message to Kakashi, who read it and let the bird go. I'll be back soon. Something came up. He told the Taki Chunin before he disappeared with Shunshin. Sasuke wondered what had pulled the Jonin away, but he didn't expect it to become an issue until they were all done and their sensei was still missing. Alright, Shibuki said dismissively as the sun set. I need to get these kids back to the village. You guys should head home, he decided. Sakura frowned, but Kakashi-sensei isn't back yet. She pointed out. Can we at least stick around to wait for him? She asked. No. Shibuki denied. Your mission is over, so you're dismissed. He insisted. I'm fine with that. Sasuke said he didn't want to stick around much longer anyway. Huh? Sasuke-kun, why? Sakura asked, confused at how easily he'd agreed. The Kunoichi was pretty sure they should wait for their Jonin commander. Kakashi is usually late anyway, Sasuke said bluntly. Besides, I'm guessing the entrance to their village is around here. I guess they don't want allies to know where it is either. He guessed with a sharp look at the Chunin. Just because we're allies now doesn't mean we always will be, Shibuki pointed out coldly. Besides, what if one of you gives the information away by accident? He pointed out. Naruto scoffed since he'd been keeping a much more serious secret than that. We're ninja. But whatever, I want to go home too. He agreed with the Uchiha. Shibuki-sama. The strained voice caught the attention of everyone present. Seeing an old woman hobbling towards them looking distressed, they attacked out of nowhere. She cried out as she started to collapse forward. Shibuki's eyes widened as he rushed to catch the falling woman. Sakura, who was still close by, rushed to help as well as the others approached with curiosity. There was a kunai in the back of the woman, confirming some kind of shinobi attack. It's not too deep, Sakura noted with a sigh of relief, reaching into her tool pouch for first aid supplies. But what could have happened? She wondered. Naruto frowned and stepped back from the old woman. The echoes were clinging to her, so she was still alive, still fine. He let Sakura handle it. Sasuke raised an eyebrow at the way the blonde shied away from injured people. Obviously, an enemy ninja attacked. He said instead of commenting on his teammate's reaction. So was she out of the village when attacked? No. Shibuki confessed. This woman is no shinobi. She wouldn't have been out of the village. She left to come get me. He realized. So, guess there's not much point hiding your home from us. Naruto said lightly. Where to? He asked. What? Shibuki asked incredulously. Why should you come help? He asked defensively. We were hired to escort you home. Our village is our allies, and your home is under attack. Naruto listed off. Why wouldn't we help? He asked in return. Before the blonde could receive an answer, his pupils constricted and he crouched as Sasuke tackled Shibuki, interrupting whatever the Chunin might say as shuriken flew over them and Sakura dragged the kids further into cover with the wounded old lady. A group of 6 enemy shinobi, some appeared to be either dressed identically in concealing black clothes or they were making use of some kind of bunshin. Sasuke leaped high and flipped as he reached into his bag, withdrawing an unfolding Fuma shuriken. The Uchiha threw his oversized weapon and tugged on ninja wires to redirect it from one shinobi into the second as they burst into water, thus confirming at least one opponent could use Mizu Bunshin. Sasuke caught sight of their Hitaiite as the other 4 retreated back the way they came. Amigekyo Nuke Nin figured out where your home was before your allies. Sasuke informed Shibuki dryly before he decided to take charge. Sakura, keep an eye on the old lady and those kids, protect them if needed. Naruto, come with me, Shibuki, show us the way. The Taki Chunin sighed. Alright, fine. He relented. If the enemy really had found his home, on a day when all their jonin were out on missions no less, then he would need all the help he could get. Shibuki led the 2 genin through the waterways into his village. Naruto was surprised at the glass-encased light sources and lanterns that kept the hidden village lit up, even hidden from the sun and the sky. It seemed much more comfortable and peaceful than the depths he was used to not seeing the sky from. Smelled nicer too. Unfortunately, the distracted genin missed Shibuki disappearing into the water until they spotted the ripples when they checked. Then they were surrounded by AIM ninja. More accurately, one AIM ninja using some kind of bunshin. Sasuke assumed Mizu bunshin and tossed a shuriken, but it went right through without dispelling. I don't think this guy wants to risk Mizu bunshin if he knows we can take them, so he's being a bit trickier. Sasuke assumed. I'll handle it, you go find Shibuki, he ordered. The blonde hesitated for a moment, but with a nod he went after the Taki Chunin. Do you brats actually think you'd stand a chance without working together? A bunshin questioned. How arrogant. Another piped up, annoying. Another spat, conceited. If you need tricks like this, that just tells me you're a weakling, and as soon as I beat your genjutsu, victory will be mine. Sasuke shot back, his eyes darting around to try figuring out which one was real. He dodged a kunai and palmed one of his own as the bunshin started throwing. The Uchiha dived into a roll as he swung his arm. His kunai clashed with a real one, and he saw which one. Sasuke rushed the AIM ninja it had come from and tossed his kunai, but to his surprise it went right through and into the bushes behind it. The genin slid to a stop, but a moment later a length of water wrapped him up as if it was a rope. He guessed it was another kind of ninjutsu and looked back to the woman who caught him. A slim woman with unkempt brown hair kept out of her eyes by a white headband, with azure earrings, pink lipstick, dressed in a pink tube top under an open blue shirt, navy blue pants, and ninja sandals. The more hostages the better, I say. Kirasame-san already got their pink-haired teammate outside, the woman said as she stepped out of the water with a smirk. Then electricity crackled down the water, into Sasuke, and the Uchiha saw white before he blacked out. There you are. Naruto grumbled as he approached Shibuki. The man jolted as the young blonde approached. What the hell are you doing hiding here now? He asked before he noticed a strange glass gourd full of water corked. What is that? He added. Shibuki frowned as he looked down at it. He hesitated. This is the Ayu no Mizu, he began. This water is tapped from a sacred tree once every 100 years. He explained. It's said to increase the power of those who drink it tenfold or more, at a terrible price. The lifespan of whoever drinks it is decreased by as much as their power is increased, he said sadly. Naruto looked down at the water. So that's what they're after, he assumed. Shibuki nodded. Many died from drinking it, including my own father. He explained. It is the duty of the leader of Takigakure no Sato to protect this water. I can't let Suien get it. Shibuki! A voice echoed from far away, startling the Chunin. Bring the Ayu no Mizu, or I will start killing hostages. I have already captured half of the Konohagakure shinobi present, the voice demanded. Suien! Shibuki spat. He must be using Kodama no Jutsu to make his voice carry all this way. He must not know for certain where I am. He pondered. I have to keep this water safe. Naruto turned on the Chunin with sudden fire in his eyes. You're just going to sit here like a coward? You'll let your people die, he snapped, his shock giving way to anger he struggled to control. I can't let them have the Ayu no Mizu. Shibuki defended himself frantically, clearly terrified and not denying the accusations of being a coward. Naruto closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Fine, he muttered before he crouched and dropped a chop into the older ninja's neck. I'll do it myself, he grumbled as the Chunin fell unconscious and the genin took the water. The blonde eyed the supposedly mystical water. It wouldn't kill him, probably, but there was no telling what it would do. He took out the cork, took a mouthful, put the cork back, and put the gourd back in the knocked-out Chunin's lap before he grabbed his weapon and turned to go find Suien. Shibuki, I am losing patience, Suien called out, his voice echoing. The man had long spiky hair, small dark eyes, and a goatee. He wore a dark blue jacket, gray pants, sandals, and a bandana that held his hair out of his face. Sasuke was infuriated he had been captured. True to their word, Sakura had been captured and tied up as well. Kakashi would not know where the village was hidden either, so the Uchiha had to hope Shibuki and Naruto could deal with the situation. As Sasuke was lamenting, there was a sudden sound of an explosion and a streak of orange flew from a distant tunnel before the blonde crashed into Suin with a spray of blood. Naruto rolled off the Jonin into a crouch as he yanked Nokojiriboko out of the shocked and dying Nukanin's chest. The Uzumaki was glowing with chakra, yellow wisps of it lifting off his body as his aura visibly glowed with power. I meant to do that, he lied with a gesture to Suin. Yep, full control of my chakra, you know. He added as his body seemed to vibrate with energy. What dash? One of the AIM Nukanin began to ask, a muscular man with chin-length gray hair that was spiked at the top, a teal line across his nose, dressed in gray pants, ninja sandals, a black sleeveless shirt, and brown arm warmers. Unfortunately, he made an aggressive movement as he spoke. The ground where Naruto had been standing cracked under the pressure as the blonde pounced. His weapon tore his cleaving blade down into the shinobi's left shoulder. Just leave. I am very on edge right now, he said to the last two. I feel like I could explode. The kunoichi and shinobi exchanged a look, then the brown-haired woman disappeared as the man, a man with messy chin-length brown hair coming out from under his light gray hat with his hataite on it, in a skin-tight black suit that covered his mouth and nose as well, a light gray scarf around his neck, and a light gray shirt underneath a strapped blue suit of overalls, leaped to the water while weaving hand signs. The shinobi touched the surface of the water, stood there, touched his fingers to the water, and threw a long whip of chakra-infused water at the young blonde. Naruto's chakra aura flared and the water destabilized before it could touch him, then the ground cracked as he pounced again. Naruto's aura seemed to flicker red in the spray of blood as he demonstrated an inability to stand on the surface of the water, forcing the dying Nukanin under to drown as he bled out. Sasuke and Sakura were surprised to note that their teammate actually seemed breathless after that. He was panting and sweating with exertion even though they'd never seen him get tired. The captured Taki citizens and genin of Cell 7 watched as the blonde slowly caught his breath, dragged himself out of the water, and approached the tied-up people as his aura faded. Naruto holstered his weapon and began to untie the people. There was an awkward silence at first. The people of Takigakure no Sato could tell the boy had drank their Ayu no Mizu. They worried about Shibuki, but they were also grateful that the blonde genin of Konoha had saved them with that power. As an added benefit, despite the explosive power he demonstrated, the boy didn't seem to be dying. They could have done without Naruto letting one of the Nukanin go, but they weren't exactly in a position to complain. Shibuki had returned, and seemed unsure what to do about the events that had unfolded. Then Naruto said some words to him. Thanks for letting me drink that water, Shibuki. A lie, a convenient excuse for the young Chunin and genin to save face. Shibuki went along with it. He let his people think he had rather let the blonde be their hero than risk his own life. He would not take away their new young blonde hero by revealing the situation had been taken out of his hands. Sasuke was annoyed that yet another C-rank mission had resulted in Naruto revealing incredible power and killing most of the enemies. He knew that it was thanks to magic water this time, but still. Actually, that the blonde had drank the water despite the risk to his life was admirable. Even the Uchiha had to admit that privately. Sakura was coming to terms with the fact that Naruto actually could be reliable. When their backs were to the wall, he fought like a cornered animal and risked his life without hesitation. Even the Haruno had to admit that was kind of cool. Kakashi was worried about Naruto. The blonde was alive at least, but far too reckless. He took some solace that Shibuki seemed ashamed of letting the young genin drink the water, but it had still happened. The Jonin wondered how long the Chunin would remain Shinobigashira after a stunt like that, but at least ties between their villages had been strengthened some by Naruto's heroics. Hiruzen Sarutobi had similar concerns to Kakashi, but his were a bit more localized. Naruto-kun, he began hesitantly, why did you drink the water? He asked. Naruto considered saying Shibuki asked him to, but he knew that would be bad. Shibuki was too scared to drink it. He said it could kill the person who drank it. He confessed. He knew hiding that would just make the Chunin look bad, and he didn't want to do that, so I just told him to let me drink it. He lied. I basically forced him. He added with a shrug, that part was more truthful. Why did you think you should drink it? Hiruzen asked curiously. Naruto shrugged again. I already have a lot of chakra, right? I figured the power boost and the drain after would be fine for an Uzumaki like me. He bluffed. It was a good enough explanation for why he hadn't died. The Sandaime Hokage frowned. It worked out, but that was reckless. He said after a moment, "In future, do not assume you will be fine because of circumstances that are not fully understood," he ordered. Naruto nodded in agreement, but even that felt like a lie considering he barely understood the circumstances of his own life anymore. Naruto wondered what need anyone had for other vices when ramen existed, as the name of his favorite food stand implied ramen was life's greatest pleasure. In the mind of the blonde, the only thing that could compare was red bean jam, but even that came a distant second. So Iruka found Naruto enjoying his 5th bowl of ramen after his 2nd successful C-rank mission. Well, celebrating or just working hard? The Chunin asked mirthfully. Naruto swallowed his current mouthful with a gulp. A bit of both, he confessed. I'm a hero. He added with a genuinely happy smile. Iruka raised an eyebrow as he sat down next to the blonde. Oh? I don't know if I'd say getting a bounty for killing a shipping magnate is all that heroic, he retorted dryly. Naruto's hand halted on its way to bring his chopsticks to his bowl. I have a bounty now, he asked. Iruka realized that the blonde had been talking about something else, but figured he should tell the boy before he steered the conversation back. Well, yeah, you killed Gato. The current figure is at a clean 70,000 ryo. He explained. What were you talking about? He asked. Naruto blinked at the price. It wasn't all that much more than AC rank considering how much money Gato was said to have. I drank the Ayu no Mizu and protected Takigakure no Sato from these nuke-nin who wanted to steal it, he answered before turning back to his ramen. You drank the what? Iruka snapped, startled by that part in particular. Where was your Jonin commander? He asked quickly. Naruto frowned. Hey, I'm the one that drank it because, no one else was in position to, he decided. Kakashi-sensei got pulled away before the mission even went wrong and didn't come back until everything was over, he explained. Iruka sighed. Still, that's worrying, he said after a moment. Tuchi and Ayam were silently sympathetic. The Ayu no Mizu is said to kill people. I guess it didn't this time, but are you okay? The man finished with a question he only just seemed to think of. Yeah, Naruto answered automatically without even thinking of whether or not it would be a lie. He felt physically fine at the moment at least, which was as good as could be expected. Tuchi laughed. He comes here to eat so often, and I think we're the first place he comes after getting paid for a mission, so I'm sure we'll know if anything is wrong, he assured the Chunin placidly. Naruto felt a bit guilty at the last words, but at least it meant he was hiding things well enough. Naruto returned to his apartment and took in the state of it. The place was a bit messy, but no worse than before he'd graduated. His eyes picked out blood stains he hadn't fully cleaned, and his nose smelled the coppery tang among his belongings. Even cleaned out of his clothes, there was no longer an escape from the smell of blood. The blonde had a shower and got changed into pants that were a darker orange than he usually liked, a mesh undershirt, and one of his spare jackets. He left his hitayate on the pillow with all methods he knew of for looking into his apartment blocked off. Why do I even have pajamas anymore? Naruto asked no one in particular, as he geared up as if going out for a mission. Then he rang his silver bell and fell into the dream again. Chapter 10. Meeting Other Monsters. Another day in Konohagakure no Sato, another day of D-rank chores for Cell 7. Naruto understood a bit better that D-rank missions were intended to stop the use of child soldiers, giving young genin a chance to grow as they helped their village from within the walls. Just because Naruto understood that didn't mean he liked it being applied to him, though. He was far from a normal genin. The blonde was an immortal blood-devouring Bakemono. Not that he wanted to let anyone else know that, so he sucked it up and finished the chores with minimal grumbling. Minimal grumbling from Naruto Uzumaki was still a lot of complaining, and muttered insults under his breath directed at lazy villagers who called pulling weeds a D-rank mission, and more muttered insults at Kakashi for not letting him have Kage Bunshin do it. Unlike normal, the Jonin commander was distracted by something before the day was over. Alright, you're dismissed for the day. See you all bright and early tomorrow, Kakashi said before he left. More like mid-afternoon, Naruto retorted once the man was already gone as Sasuke turned to leave. Sakura turned to Sasuke so fast that Naruto thought she might get whiplash. Oh, Sasuke-kun, she sing-song, do you want to get lunch together? She asked eagerly. No, Sasuke refused out of hand. If you have time to ask for a date, then you have time to train. He scolded as he turned back, then his eyes fell on the blonde behind the kunoichi. When was the last time Naruto asked you for a date? He asked rhetorically. Sakura was surprised by the sudden change of topic, but she realized where it was going as it clicked in her mind that Naruto had not asked her out once since they'd graduated. In fact, he mostly left the team alone outside of missions and training. Naruto had not thought about dating since he died the first time, but he couldn't say that. I just haven't really thought about it. He excused. We all get to hang out for missions and training anyway, you know. He added with a shrug. Unfortunately for the blonde, the last sentence was as odd as it was unnecessary. What do you think a date is? Sasuke asked. Naruto looked around for an escape route as he considered how to answer. What? It's just a date, right? He stalled. Two people see a movie or hang out or something, then they get ramen, then one of them gets escorted home before the other goes home. Sakura seemed contrite and embarrassed for some reason the blonde did not understand, while Sasuke just looked exasperated. What kind of movie? The Uchiha asked with a raised eyebrow. Naruto frowned. He had no idea. He didn't get to see movies very often even before he died. Fuenheim, I guess. He decided with a shrug. Sakura stared incredulously at Naruto. Not a horror? She asked. She'd assumed the blonde would use the excuse of cheap scares to cop a feel. The mental images of the depths, blood and monsters, flashed in Naruto's mind's eye. I don't really like those, he said simply as he avoided his teammate's eyes and crossed his arms. Romance? Sakura asked. That was at least what most people thought of as a date film. Fuenheim is romantic, Naruto insisted with a pout. Sakura's eye twitched. Not that kind of, she began before she shook her head. Ugh, never mind. She groaned. Sasuke smirked and turned to leave again. Well, now that is cleared up, I have training, he began before his eyes widened and his head snapped towards the blonde. Training, he repeated as his eyes narrowed at the other male genin of Cell 7. What? Naruto asked. Show us how you trained, Sasuke demanded bluntly. Naruto panicked. He could not do that. His training methods were literally inhuman. He went into monster-filled dungeons to rip something ethereal from their blood, then a magic doll in his subconscious fused the dying wills and the blood into attributes to make him stronger, more skilled, more durable, and even smarter. The blonde struggled to think of an excuse despite having raised his intelligence more than once. Well, I did a lot of sit-ups and push-ups, he began hesitantly, and I drank lots of milk. He recalled he had needed to replace that milk. It had been chunky. Sasuke and Sakura stared at their blonde teammate for a moment before the kunoichi spoke up. Can you be more specific? The pink-haired girl asked in an exasperated tone. Naruto struggled to think of a believable lie. I dunno, lots of physical training until I get sore, I guess. He attempted with a shrug. Sasuke frowned as he recalled the monstrous stamina of the blonde and just how long it would take him to get sore. Wait a minute, muscles grow when we tear them, right? He asked Sakura, who nodded. So they get stronger when they heal? He clarified, and the Haruno nodded again. Damn it, no wonder, you can just heal torn muscles faster than us, the Uchiha complained. Naruto had never once considered that, but he supposed it made sense. Oh, cool. He verbalized. He doubted he'd ever actually get to make use of it, and it wasn't like he needed it anymore, but it made a great excuse. Sasuke shook his head at the unfairness of it. Figures, I'll just have to train smarter since you can train harder, he grumbled before he turned to leave. Sakura pouted as she watched the Uchiha leave, and Naruto scratched the back of his head, but the blonde was distracted by a sound moving towards them. A scraping on the ground had Naruto turned to see a square box with eye holes painted to look like a pile of rocks. It had not gotten close. What are you doing? The rock stopped, then out of it crawled 3 academy students, one of which Naruto recognized. Konohamaru with a boy with glasses and a bowl cut, and a girl with glasses and her hair up in twin tails, a bit too up probably. Konohamaru smirked. As expected of our future sensei, he began, you saw right through it, he said as if that was a feat. The blonde just wondered if the boy would actually get to be on whatever team he wanted, since that certainly was not how it worked for Naruto. Sakura just seemed confused. What's with the kids? She asked her blonde teammate. The snot-nosed boy in glasses spoke up first. I am the genius of the Konohagakure Academy, capable of advanced mathematics even at a young age. Udan I see. He introduced with a kabuki pose. The girl went next, the most seductive academy student and future kunoichi, Moegi Kazumatsuri. She introduced next with a mirrored pose. Under the leadership of the great Konohamaru Sarutobi, Konohamaru picked up, indicating they definitely rehearsed this as he posed between them. We are the Konohamaru Gundan. He finished proudly before dropping the pose and laughing proudly. Naruto cocked his head to the side. So why am I your future sensei? He asked dryly. You're strong, right? Konohamaru responded eagerly. Cool too, right? He insisted. Moegi and Udan were looking curiously at the holstered Nokojuriboko. I guess so. I probably won't be jonin before you guys graduate though, he pointed out. Konohamaru just huffed and crossed his arms. You can do it, you stood up to Ebisu. He insisted. Naruto raised an eyebrow. What about that dork now? He asked, clueless about how that situation had looked to the younger boy. Konohamaru turned smugly to Moegi and Udan. See? He asked them with a gesture to Naruto, and both of the other academy students nodded approvingly. Come on, Oyabun, at least play ninja with us today, right? He asked hopefully. Sakura scoffed. What kind of shinobi plays ninja? She asked with a smug smirk. Naruto shrugged. I dunno. If you seriously want me to be your sensei, then I should hurry up and get stronger now, you know? He asked. Oh yeah, show us how you train. Moegi insisted, metaphorical stars in her eyes. Naruto tensed up. No, not today. He denied, maybe not ever. Sakura frowned as she wondered why there was a problem with people seeing how he trained if all he did was more intense physical exercise. Ah, come on, right? Konohamaru insisted before he finally seemed to notice Sakura. Oh, he said blandly. Oh. He said with a bit more enthusiasm. Say no more, Oyabun, I get it. He said slyly. You and her, right? He asked with an eyebrow wiggle. Sakura's eye twitched at the implication. No, she snapped, glaring at Naruto as if daring him to say otherwise. The blonde just shrugged. We're teammates. I think that's about it. He answered. Sakura nodded. Besides, I only have eyes for Sasuke-kun. She insisted. Konohamaru seemed confused, then he looked to the aspiring kunoichi in his group. Moegi cleared her throat. She has a type. She explained shortly and simply. Udan nodded in understanding. Both Naruto and Konohamaru exchanged a confused look. Sakura rolled her eyes. Didn't you say you wanted to train so you can be their Jonin sensei? She asked dryly. Yeah, training. Konohamaru agreed eagerly. Take us with you, right? He requested boisterously. Udan and Moegi nodded in agreement with expressions of similar excitement. Sakura narrowed her eyes at the way Naruto paled. No, he refused in an annoyed tone. Konohamaru, Moegi, and Udan pouted, stingy. They all muttered in unison as their postures slumped simultaneously. Naruto sighed as he slouched. Look, if we play ninja for a little bit, will you guys let me train alone? He bargained. The 3 academy students all nodded eagerly. Sakura shook her head at them and turned to leave. Alright, ninja tag then. The blonde decided. Konohamaru is it first. He added before he ran past Sakura. Unfortunately, Konohamaru was kind of dense. He assumed Sakura would be playing too, so as he chased his team past the kunoichi, he made to touch her leg on his way past. In his excitement and speed he missed, touched a little too high, a little too fast with a slapping sound. Thankfully Konohamaru was already running for it, because now Sakura Haruno was hot on his heels with murder in her eyes for the accidental slight. The boy looked back and realized he'd erred somehow. He gained a boost of fear-induced adrenaline and overtook his fellow academy students. Naruto stepped to the side to allow Konohamaru to get past him, but the boy rounded a corner too fast and slammed into a stranger wearing a baggy black bunraku outfit with a red and yellow circle on the front, a black hood covering his head with points resembling cat ears and a hitaide on it. The boy was carrying something wrapped up in bandages on his back, and he was also wearing triangular designed purple face paint. Next to the boy was a teal-eyed girl with sandy blonde hair and 4 pigtails, wearing a light purple off-the-shoulder garment that extended down to her mid-thigh, tied around her waist with a red sash. her hitate worn around her neck, and fishnets visible on her shoulders, left thigh, and right calf. The girl was carrying what appeared to be an oversized fan on her back. The male of the two picked up Konohamaru by the front of his shirt and scarf. That hurt, snotface. He sneered at the much smaller boy. Knock it off, Kankuro. The girl scolded idly, not seeming like she actually cared one way or the other. Sakura seemed to calm down now that someone was actually threatening the child. It was my fault. I was fooling around. She tried to excuse Konohamaru's behavior nervously. Put him down, Naruto demanded, glaring at the older boy who was apparently named Kankuro. The boy in question just smirked. I just want to play with him a little, he said as he tightened his grip to cause the younger boy pain, at least until the nuisance gets here. He finished. If you hurt anyone in this village, I'll rip you to shreds. Naruto threatened. His voice had a deathly calm to it, and his expression didn't shift at all. Kankuro narrowed his eyes. You think you can, shrimp? He asked before a rock hit the hand holding Konohamaru up and the boy scrambled away. I assure you he could if he decided to. Sasuke's voice spoke up from the branch of a nearby tree as he tossed another rock up and down. If anything, you're alive because he didn't want to accidentally hurt the Sandaime Hokage's Omega. He added, and the boy in question scowled at the title. It had the effect the Uchiha desired, though. Kankuro paled as his teammate glared at him for almost causing a diplomatic incident. Then Naruto felt something brush against his awareness. His eyes darted to the branch on the tree opposite from Sasuke as a boy closer in age to Cell 7 appeared there. The boy had short auburn hair, the kanji for love scarred into his forehead, green eyes with thick black rings around them, no eyebrows, wearing a black bodysuit with a white sash going from right shoulder to left hip and a brown leather belt going the opposite underneath that, holding a large gourd to his back. Who are you? Naruto snapped suddenly, getting the attention of everyone else on the newcomer. Kankuro was the one who answered him as the boy turned paler. Gaara! He exclaimed in alarm. The green-eyed boy ignored his name. Instead, he was focused on Naruto, who was in turn focused on him. Sasuke and Sakura could tell something was up. The blonde's stance had subtly shifted to that predatory stance of his. Naruto could smell that the boy named Gaara smelled like blood. A sickly sweet metallic scent clung to him like a miasma. The blonde was reminded of the depths. The dungeons beneath Konoha sometimes smelled similar. Now that he thought about it, the Uzumaki himself might even be getting a similar scent. Seeing whom I have invited here, Hiruzen began as he looked at the jonin in his office. You may be able to guess the purpose of this meeting. He finished with a puff of his pipe, the tobacco smoke a pleasant taste in his mouth as it helped him stay relaxed. That time already? Kakashi asked, pondering about how time flies. Have you informed the other lands then? Another jonin spoke up. I've spotted some foreign ninja in our village already. He mused. When is it to be? He finished with a question. A week from today. Hiruzen responded, glad his jonin were so quick on the uptake. This is rather sudden. Another jonin pointed out. Hiruzen sighed out a breath of smoke. I'll make it official. I hereby announce that 7 days from now, on July 1st, we shall be conducting the Chunin selection examinations within Konohagakure no Sato. He declared with a smile. First, I would like to hear from those who have been overseeing our most junior genin, Kakashi, Asuma, and Kurenai. He continued, and the three jonin stepped forward. Tell us, do any of you feel it time to nominate any of your genin for the Chunin exams? He questioned. Mostly as a formality, each of your teams has completed the minimum required missions, so kindly employ your best judgment as to be considered truly competitive. A team should have completed at least double the required minimum. He reminded them all. You may begin, Kakashi-san. He finished with a nod towards the silver-haired jonin. Cell number 7, Kakashi began formally, led by Kakashi, consists of Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, and Naruto Uzumaki. He continued. He knew that of those the Uchiha would draw a crowd for the more public phase of the exam. I vow upon the honor of Clan Hitaki, they're all fit for the Chunin selection examinations. He finished, reciting the formal verbal application and startling Irika. Cell number 8, Kurenai, the red-eyed and dark-haired woman with fair skin, spoke next, led by Kurenai, consists of Hinata Hyuga, Kiba Inuzuka, and Shino Aburame. I vow upon the honor of Clan Yuhi, they are also fit to compete in the Chunin selection examinations. She finished calmly, prompting the other assembled jonin to exchange surprised looks. Cell number 10, Asuma spoke next, an unlit cigarette in his mouth, led by Asuma, consists of Ino Yamanaka, Shikamaru Nara, and Choji Akamichi. I vow upon the honor of Clan Sarutobi that all three are ready for the Chunin selection examinations. He finished confidently. Hiruzen raised an eyebrow. How unusual, all three of you, he muttered, surprised since the three most junior genin cells had not been genin long. He'd expected it from Kakashi, all things considered. Just a moment. Iruka spoke up, taking a moment to find his voice. Hokage-sama, please allow me to speak, he requested. Yes, Iruka-san? Hiruzen asked, assuming he knew what the Chunin would say. Forgive me if I overstep, Iruka began, but those 9 genin listed, they were my students in the academy. He reminded for the benefit of any in the room who were unaware. Certainly they are gifted and show talent, he continued, but they're just children. They are not ready to step up to Chunin level yet. He protested. Only with more time will they have the maturity and experience required by these exams. He pointed out, remembering taking the exams himself, I don't understand why their supervisors would recommend them. He finished, not wanting to insult the jonin but too worried for his former students to stay quiet. Kakashi and Asuma exchanged a glance before the Hatake turned to Iruka. I was 6 years younger than Naruto when I took the exams. He pointed out calmly. Naruto-kun is not you. Iruka shot back, ready to continue speaking. He doesn't need to be, Kakashi retorted, he's perfectly capable with his own abilities. The 3 genin I nominated are not your students anymore, Iruka, they're my soldiers. He explained, in fact, I'll be surprised if Naruto and Sasuke don't make it to the finals. There was some muttering at the very idea that the blonde who was considered a menace and fool was similar in skill to the last Uchiha in Konoha. Iruka swallowed loudly but did not argue his point further. Gaara dropped down next to the other 2 foreign shinobi. Naruto tried to remember the symbol. I am Sabaka no Gaara. Who are you, Konoha shinobi? He asked. His eyes shifted slightly to Sasuke but he didn't turn away from the blonde. Sand that narrowed it down. Naruto realized he was dealing with Tsunegekure shinobi for some reason in Konohagakure no Sato, Naruto Uzumaki. Now what are you Suna ninja doing here? He asked pointedly. The kunoichi of the group, also seemed to be the oldest, spoke up. Chunin selection examination is being held here soon, didn't you hear? She asked with a smirk as she produced a pass that the blonde could only assume said she was allowed to be in the village. It did look very official. Naruto was silent for a moment. That's a thing? I need to participate, he decided plainly. Gaara shifted his head up towards Sasuke. Will your teammate be participating too? He wondered curiously. Sasuke dropped down to stand with his own team. Sasuke Uchiha, changing your mind about participating now? He asked mockingly. Gaara's face remained impassive. Not at all. This looks like it might actually be fun, he said tonelessly without a hint of excitement. It was too measured into the level of uncanny. The 2 kunoichi of opposing teams exchanged a sympathetic glance but did not bother exchanging names in between the territorial display from the male genin. Sakura thought Naruto seemed a bit too serious though. The Uzumaki was acting as if Gaara was scarier than Zabuza for some reason, and he didn't relax until the Suna trio were gone. Naruto stalked the depths beneath Konoha with a purpose. He hunted beasts for their blood, looking for more useful materials he could use. He found more paper but it was folded around a white powder like a makeshift envelope. He refolded it and put it away to ask the doll about later. The blonde had grown more comfortable with the place. His use of Kaiga Bunshin generally tended to prevent his death so he hadn't had to experience that in a while. It was dark, cold, dangerous, and everything seemed to want him dead. Naruto crept along a ceiling up behind another large fat pale thing as he wondered why he felt so comfortable. As he dropped down and drove his extended Nokojiriboko into the skull of his target, he considered that it was because he was becoming the apex predator of the levels he prowled. The genin didn't tend to travel too deep, but after seeing Gaara and knowing Chunin exams might become a factor, the young blonde felt the need to push himself. However, the sight of a stone elevator that went down to where he couldn't see had his confidence falter slightly. He used it anyway. Naruto heard something scream as the stone elevator came to a grinding halt on the lower floor. It sounded enraged and in pain all at once, a blood-chilling sound. The Uzumaki suppressed a shiver down his spine as he ventured deeper than he'd been before. The first enemy he ran into was blessedly familiar, a torch-wielding humanoid. The desiccated thing didn't even notice him sneak up behind it. He silently holstered Nokojiraboko as he palmed a kunai before he shifted the blade to a reverse grip in his right hand and lifted his arms. The beast that looked too much like a human corpse drained of blood stumbled but did not fall. Naruto panicked and reached out to twist the blade of his kunai deeper. However, his right hand erupted with platinum blonde fur as his fingernails became claws that dug deep into the flesh of his prey. His pupils dilated as he ripped the beast open viscerally. Naruto retrieved his kunai as he tossed the dead beast to the ground. He looked at his hand again, but it was for all appearances a normal human hand covered in blood. He considered his movements. It was as if something had clicked, and he moved instinctively. The blonde genin made a note to be wary of doing that outside the depths as he picked up the flickering torch before it could extinguish in the pooling blood. Then he readied his Nokojiraboko with his right hand and continued. More desiccated husks crossed Naruto's path. His stealth impeded by the torch, he attempted to fight a group of 3 of them when they noticed him. One had a farming sickle, another had a machete-like sword, and the third carried a mace. Naruto flicked his blade open at the mace-wielding beast before he strained his arm to lift the blade up and swing it down into the left shoulder of the thing. Mentally he thanked Zabuza for the knowledge of which points to hit. That artery under the left shoulder really sprayed sweet blood. He yanked his arm back and down as he hopped back to avoid the other 2. Naruto shifted his grip to point the inward curved cleaving edge of his weapon up, then swung it up to carve into the sickle-wielding beast's hip at an angle before he tightened his grip on the lever and flicked the blade shut to disembowel the husk of a thing. Then the blonde thrust his lit torch into the face of the beast as it swung its blade at him. Unfortunately, it was already swinging and struck a moment faster. The blade dug deep into his left arm and knocked it aside. Naruto winced in pain but stepped to the beast and swung his folded Nokojiraboko. The saw-toothed blade ripped into the flesh of his prey and sprayed him in sweet healing blood that his injury sucked up greedily. The blonde looked around and found 2 gates in the hall they had come from, an iron one at the end like he had seen before and a golden one in the middle on the right side. The blonde genin approached the golden door. It was shinier, so surely there was something good in there. He holstered his weapon and lifted the golden door one-handed. With a shove he sent it up and ducked through to a stairway that led to another door. Naruto looked before he stepped. Cautious of traps, he checked everywhere, including above him. He found no danger and went down to open the second gold door. This led to a much wider room, as he expected, a treasure room. The boy sighed as he lamented that he could not take any of it to the surface. But the last treasure room had a gun, so he might still find something useful. With that in mind, he checked the corners as he entered the room. Pillars adorned with silver and gold plates took up the room. A shadow at the end of the room moved, and the blonde realized he was facing his first nightmare, the first beast that killed him, or at least one very much like it. A wolf the size of a bear with hands like a man. Naruto dropped his torch and took a step back as the beast took a hungry, lurching step forward. The beast was getting ready to pounce. Naruto reached into his tool pouch and withdrew his flintlock. The wolf-like thing pounced with a low growl that was quickly drowned out by a gunshot. The boy heard something strange as the beast stumbled. Naruto wasn't sure why the beast stumbled, but he realized it was very similar to the backstab he'd gotten earlier. He dashed at the staggered monster as he holstered his Nokojiraboko to reach out with his right hand. Bloody blonde fur sprouted along with claws as he reached into the bullet wound he'd made and viscerally tore into his prey. The blonde genin was drenched in blood as the monster fell to the ground, but to his alarm it still was not dead. Naruto panicked. He grabbed his Nokojiraboko and swung the folded blade across the snout of the beast as it snapped at him. The bloody boy dashed back as the monster swiped at him. He was sure the doll said that his gun could use his blood as ammo in a pinch. He tested it and rammed the needle near the hammer of the gun into his left thigh. He felt it suck blood straight into the barrel. Naruto braced himself as the beast pounced again. He took the shot, staggered it, stepped forth as he holstered his melee weapon, and viscerally tore into his prey with his right hand. The blood sprayed over him, replenishing the blood lost to reload his gun. This time the haze of the chi no ishi flowed into Naruto, and the beast did not get up. He retrieved his pilfer torch before it could sputter out as he put his gun away and then checked the chest the beast had been guarding. 6 of those strange vials. It was like a needle of blood with no plunger to actually use it with. Naruto realized why it didn't need one. His body would probably suck the blood out of as soon as he stabbed the needle into himself, like whatever Ryoshi had designed the vial. Idly he wondered how they got the blood in there. As he checked his first aid kit, he took out bandages and shoved them in the tool pouch so the 6 glass vials would have the extra layer of being in the first aid kit if he got knocked around. Still, the blonde was a bit disappointed. He supposed blood in general had value to the Ryoshi who came before him. Now that he thought about it, it must have had value to whatever civilization had once lived in the ruins. Naruto checked his watch and winced. Even if he rushed and didn't shower, he was going to be late for the next team meeting. So would Kakashi, but still, Naruto considered the room he was in and figured it would have to do. Naruto pulled out his silver bell and rang it. He needed to get home, shower, get dressed, and rush to the meeting spot before Kakashi got there. Naruto enjoyed ramen after he finished with his team for the day. Then he returned home, dressed in his hunting attire, and returned to the dream. He hadn't had a chance to have the doll enhance him that morning, but he had gotten a lot of hunting done last night, so he had plenty of blood. Idly the boy considered that more blood tinge would have let him kill the beast faster, but he shook the thought from his head. If Naruto wanted to be a Chunin, he would need to be stronger. With that thought in mind, he approached the doll and closed his eyes as she affectionately touched his face and directed the chi no ishi to enhance his muscles. The next few days Naruto repeated his routine: hunt beasts in the depths of the dungeons beneath Konoha by night, and perform his ninja duties by day. He enhanced his fine motor skills in arcane, and decided to enhance his vitality too in the hopes it would help prevent dying in front of his team at some point. Then one night, while confident and full of chi no ishi, the blonde genin entered a large antechamber, and he heard that same scream he heard nearly a week ago, but much louder and much closer. A giant of a beast with antlers and a canine face with the lips pulled back taut, an emaciated form with an oversized left arm that had shaggier fur like its mane and claws like short swords. It smelled like decay, death, and blood. Naruto fired his gun as the giant monster came at him. He dived to avoid its swiping claw and rolled to a crouch as he swung his saw-toothed weapon into the left leg of the beast. The monster reared its left arm back and the blonde leaped back, but was a moment too slow. He was lifted up and slammed into the ground. The back of his skull hit the stone floor. Naruto's vision went white. He blinked blearily as he wondered how was still alive after that. Then the beast screamed again and slammed its massive left claws into his chest, leaned over him, and bit his head off. Naruto blinked his eyes open in the dream. That is the single most terrifying Bakemono I have ever encountered, he said blandly. The doll frowned sympathetically. I had a bunch of blood too, he muttered as he opened his tool pouch. Thankfully nothing was damaged, but Naruto only had 4 quicksilver bullets left. He barely ever needed first aid, so he hadn't used the blood vials yet. He usually either absorbed the blood of what injured him, or died. To be fair to the blonde, that was only the 3rd time he died. Then again, most people stopped after the first time since they could not generally get back up. From what Naruto had read, the Ryoshi did not write about how often they died, or when, so he had no idea how he measured up unless he asked the doll. Naruto decided not to ask the doll and checked the time. Already? He grumbled. Dying must make him lose time he hadn't noticed. Well, at least he was rested. He returned to his apartment in the waking world and checked his gear there. All in order, not even bloody since the boy had died, and reset his body, then teleported. Naruto decided his powers were weird. Naruto met with his team and waited for their sensei on a bridge. It was almost as bad as actually doing the D-rank missions. Irika-sensei is my favorite, he told Sakura while they waited. She looked confused at the non sequitur for a moment before she considered it, and nodded in agreement. Eventually the tardy Jonin arrived on top of a torii at one end of the bridge. I got lost, he excused lazily. Naruto was pretty sure some of the excuses were intentionally bad just to mess with them. The blonde had died and he still showed up on time for work, and he wasn't even finished puberty yet. The idea of beast puberty crossed his mind and the blonde squashed it. He would panic about that train of thought in private later, or repress it in the hopes it never came up. Kakashi ignored Sakura's accusations about being late as he hopped down to their level. This may come as a surprise, but I've nominated all three of you for the Chunin selection examinations. He began, enjoying the surprised disbelief for a moment before pulling out the applications. You have to fill these out. He continued. Naruto grabbed it eagerly. Scanning the document, he was glad to notice any kanji had furigana next to them so he could actually read them. Mostly it was katakana, so he'd fill it out like that. Sasuke took his eagerly as well. If any of you don't think you're up to compete, that's fine, Kakashi began once Sakura took hers. It's voluntary. If you do choose to compete, hand in those forms and report to room 301 by 4 in the afternoon at the academy tomorrow. He instructed, that's all. He finished before disappearing with Shunshin. Naruto grinned at his application. Alright, I guess I really will be Chunin in no time. He mused confidently. Oh good, Sasuke began with a smirk. I was worried you might chicken out and I wouldn't get to fight you. He mused. Naruto narrowed his eyes but couldn't help a slight grin of his own. I guess we haven't had a chance to spar since the academy, have we? He mused back. Sakura frowned at the two boys, unsure why they seemed to actually like fighting. She was glad Naruto clarified sparring at least, but she looked down at her application hesitantly as the two boys went home to prepare. Naruto rushed to take on the giant beast that had killed him. He even found it hadn't picked up his chi no ishi from the pool of blood his corpse had made and managed to get those back. Unfortunately, despite igniting his weapon with one of the resin-coated papers, he did not put up a much better fight the second time, or the third, or the fourth. By morning the blonde genin was frustrated and feeling a little bit powerless. He knew he could swipe aside monsters that had once been a threat to him, but he still couldn't cause any real damage to that massive monster. Naruto sighed. Did I not spend enough time getting stronger before fighting that thing? He wondered. He had spent weeks in the depths before going deep enough to encounter that thing, and it terrified him. The blonde morosely prepared himself for the day ahead. At least with the Chunin examinations, his only concern would probably be that Suna genin who seemed almost like a beast himself, Gaara.